What up, everybody? Good morning and a happy Friday to you all. A happy football Friday coming at you. DK Show up on the air on your radio dials 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Also available online at sportstalk1051.com. Stream it up over there. Got your smart devices, smart speakers, like your Google and Alexa devices. Got this morning right away Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. But big thanks for making us part of your start on this Friday morning before we head off for the weekend. What do we got on our game plan for us this morning? Well, in the typical football Friday fashion, we'll be talking some football, breaking it down. Packers, Jaguars. Packers flying out tomorrow, getting sets for their game against the Jaguars. Then things get a little bit interesting after that. But Packers getting a little help last night too with the Rams taking down the Vikings 30-20. But Packers got to take care of their own business here too. So, what are your key matchups? What are your keys to victory? And what are your predictions? What do you got for some predictions here? All right, you can start to hit me up on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line with some quick texts 715-830-1912. How do you see this one playing out for the Pack? And maybe I mean, knock on wood, I'm getting a little bit healthier. Quail Walker is advancing through the concussion protocol, was able to do some stuff a little bit yesterday. So he officially was listed as a limited participant. So the only player to not participate at all was Corey Ballantine for the Pack. So maybe, just maybe, they're going in there with fairly healthy at this point in time as we head into halfway through the regular season here. So but we'll break it out, give you a little bit of a background on the Jaguars. I'm sure everybody knows the quarterback and Trevor Lawrence and such. But how have the Jaguars fared so far this season in on defensive side and offensive numbers? We'll take a look at that. Do a little scouting report when it comes to the Jaguars, who actually spent the last couple weeks across the pond over there, so they'll be back at home where Green Bay will travel to. So we got that coming up. We'll talk some Badgers as well, getting set for their big game tomorrow night. Camp Randall, Penn State's coming on over. Can the Badgers pull off the upsets? Can they pull off the upsets against Penn State tomorrow night? We'll talk some college football and preview that game amongst some others when we get to our picks and predict segment coming up a little bit later on. The Bucks are also back in action tonight. They'll be at home, gonna be going up against the Chicago Bulls. So the Bucks looking to start their season at 2-0. Also, World Series begins tonight. So we got Yankees, Dodgers. It's time to make some predictions and picks for your World Series winners. How do you see this one playing out? How do you see this one playing out? You going to roll with the Dodgers or are you going to roll with the Yankees? Game one, finally here. Going to be starting off on the West Coast, going to visit the Dodgers. You got Garrett Cole, who's going to be on the mound. Flaherty's going to be on the mound for the Dodgers. So we'll preview that a little bit, get to your picks and predictions about that. Got some local sports roundup with our good buddy, Mr. Brandon Berg. High school football playoffs begin tonight. I know some other prep sports like volleyball and such, and tennis and golf wrapping up, but volleyball's in some postseason action. You got soccer, and then of course high school football playoffs starting tonight for a lot of our teams in our general vicinity or listening area. So Brandon and I, or mostly Brandon, I'll give Brandon all the credit. Brandon's going to break it down for us for our local sports roundup, but we'll go through the brackets a little bit. take a look at some intriguing matchups and such. But we'll find out where Brand's going to be at covering some of the games and such. So we got that. We got Stout taking on the Blue Gold, UW Eau Claire in football tomorrow. That should be a good one. Stout, I think, is surprising a lot of people this year for how well they are playing and a lot of close games, a lot of wins, a lot of big time wins. So it'll be a battle for the Blue Golds, no question about it. It will be a tough game for the Blue Golds. So we'll make that a part of our local sports roundup. Coming at you a little bit later on, we've got Dr. Crow inside the training room just under an hour from now, past 7 o'clock, just past 7 o'clock. So we'll catch up with the good doc. We've got cream of the crop. As always, you can participate in our cream of the crop picks if you'd like. But we'll do those coming up a little bit later on, too. We got a full up game plan, man. We got pro football, we've got college football, we've got the NBA, we've got Major League Baseball, we've got local sports roundup. Oh, Nelly, do we have a full lineup here? So, without further ado, let's get going here this morning, shall we? Excuse me. Starting off with the leadoff, talk a little Packers and Jaguars getting sets for the game on Sunday, noon kickoff. And as always, as a tradition, as we like to do on a little Football Friday here, we'll give you a little bit of a background on the opponents and kind of see where they match up in terms of numbers with the Packers and such, and where they rank and in certain areas and that. But I think it's fair to say the Jaguars overall this year have definitely been a team that a disappointing start. Disappointing start to the season. You know, a couple of years ago, they made the postseason with Doug Peterson coming over. I was like, okay, they're trending in the right direction. A lot of rather a little bit of hype last year. I mean, there were some people picking the Jaguars to be one of the top seeds in the AFC, and they didn't make the playoffs last year. Big contract to Trevor Lawrence. And you look at the AFC South, the Texans obviously was a very high favorite this year, considering what we saw with them last year. But I think it's also fair to say there was a little bit more expectations for the Jaguars than what we have seen so far this year. Just 2-5, 0-4 on the road actually here too. Their home games do count in London over there, in case anybody was wondering. But just 2-5, third in the AFC South, behind the Texans and behind the Colts right now. They began the season on a 4-game losing streak, losing to the Dolphins 20-17, losing to Cleveland, getting dominated by Buffalo, losing to the Texans, beating the Colts 37-34, losing to the Bears a couple weeks ago across the pond, and then coming off this 32-16 victory against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, one of those guys that got a big quarterback deal in the offseason so far, completing 62% of his passes for a little over 1,500 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, quarterback rating of a 92.3. Jaguars also employ a couple of running backs out there. You got Tank Bigsby, who's leading the team in rushing with 415 rushing yards on the ground. Travis Etienne, 230. Rookie receiver Brian Thomas leading the team in yards right now, 513 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. They got Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, Evan Ingram, also in the receiving department too. So there's names we recognize, right? There's no question about it. There's names that we recognize. So let's go a little bit deeper though. Let's see where this ball club ranks up across the NFL and kind of compare it to Green Bay, shall we? So let's get at her. Pitter patter. Let's get at her. We'll take our first break and then lead off coming up here this morning, previewing Packers Jaguars. I want your predictions. I want your keys to victory. I want your key matchups. And give me a player to watch, or give me a player that's got to have a game this weekend, offensively and defensively. All right. Quick break. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. If you're in the market to maybe get a new home, maybe your first home, maybe your family's expanding and you're looking to get a bigger home, or maybe you're looking to get a parcel of land either to build or get some hunting land over there, you can get all in one place. Check out all the listings in one place at Woods and Water Realty. Woods and Water Realty, your real estate store. Just visit their website, woodsandwater.com, to check out all the entire listings there. And the entire staff, the entire team over at Woods and Water Realty, their team of realtors will help you, work with you to find your dream home or that perfect piece of hunting land or land that you've been kind of dreaming about for a while. So stop dreaming about it and start maybe looking, start doing it. Go to woodsandwater.com today to get started. All right, let's get things going here this morning, shall we? The leadoff, Packers, Jaguars. Packers heading down to Florida to take on the 2-5 Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars spending the last couple weeks across the pond, coming off of a win against the Patriots this past week. The previous week, they fell to the Chicago Bears. Jaguars, one of the more disappointing teams so far this season. I think, disappointing in the face of, I think we all thought they'd be a little bit better, but they got players. I mean, when you look at their roster, they got players. We know Trevor Lawrence is over there. We know about Travis Etienne. Take Bigsby's having a good season, especially in his last couple of weeks. Rookie receiver Brian Thomas Jr. is having a solid rookie year. Gabe Davis is over there from Buffalo. Evan Ingram. Their offensive line. You remember Brandon Sheriff's over there. You've got Ezra Cleveland, Cam Robinson and such. Defensively, Eric Armstead's over there. Trayvon Walker, the former number 1 overall pick. I think you could say that maybe they got that one wrong, bypassed on Aiden Hutchinson over there. But, I mean, so I think a lot of people are like, and especially a couple years ago when they make the postseason, it was like, okay, the arrow's trending upward. But for whatever reason, it ain't just working out so far for Jacksonville. And I think it's fair to say that Doug Peterson, coaching staff, maybe a little bit on the hot seat. We'll see how the rest of the season kind of transpires for them, but I think it's fair to say that job security over there might be a little bit up in the air for Doug Peterson and his Jaguars coaching staff. So, where do the Jaguars rank in terms of the rest of the teams in the NFL? Let's break it down here a little bit, okay? Let's start off with the offense. They shelled out a lot of money to their quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. And when you look at yards per game, and we threw out some names, right? Brian Thomas Jr., Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk's over there. Evan Ingram, I know, has been a little bit banged up, but takes Bigsby and Travis Etienne. All those guys on the offensive side. But when you look at where they rank in terms of yards per game offensively, they're about middle of the pack in the NFL. They're about in the middle. You've got the Colts that are just above them, averaging 329.3 points per game. Jacksonville's 325.9. Minnesota, right behind them, 325. Now, Green Bay is a team that's just outside the top 5. They're averaging 383, a little over 383 yards per game on the offensive side. If we break it down in terms of the passing game here, Green Bay 2, 4, 6, 8. So they're in the top 10 in terms of passing yards per game. Again, passing yards are a little bit down this year. Green Bay's in the top 10. They're, averaging 228 in the air. Again, Jacksonville's a little bit of middle of the pack, maybe just outside of the middle of the pack. So they're only averaging 201 yards per game through the air. Rushing is where they have been able to have some success in moving the ball. Now, again, Green Bay is a top 5 team in terms of running the ball. 155 yards on the ground. And Jacksonville's just outside the top 10, 124.3 yards per game on the ground. So that's kind of where Jacksonville's offense, again, I think when you look at who they have on their roster and the type of talent that they have on their roster, it's probably a little bit of a head scratcher for some. Like, why aren't they able to do a little bit more? You got an offensive minded head coach over there, and a little bit left to be desired at this point. Now, defensively, when we look at what the Jaguars are defensively, they're not great. They're not great. They're a bottom 5 team in terms of giving up yards per game. They are giving up 376.4 yards per game. Compare it to Green Bay, who right now is about middle of the pack, 318. San Francisco's just slightly, so Green Bay's 318.4, San Francisco 318. If you break it down by passing yards per game, defensively, how many yards through the air are they giving up? Jacksonville, second worst. The second worst team in the NFL in terms of passing yards, giving up passing yards. The only team that's worse than them, though, is Baltimore. So Jacksonville's given up 273.9 yards through the air. Baltimore dead last at 287.1. Green Bay, as we mentioned, middle of the pack, 203.9. That's what they're allowing through the air. When we look at rushing yards per game, this is where Jacksonville's defense has had success. They are a top 10 team in rushing defense, only allowing 102.6 yards on the ground. In a complete flip, it's similar to Baltimore, but Baltimore is the top team in rushing defense. Last in passing, top in rushing. Again, Green Bay, middle of the pack right now. Green Bay, and just a little bit of a side note, Green Bay and San Francisco are like right next to each other in all these defensive categories. It's kind of interesting there. But, it's about points per game when it comes to the defensive side, right? In Green Bay, 2, 4, 6, 8. So they're 10th, it looks like. Every team in the NFC North, top 10, is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, every team in the NFC North, top 10 in points allowed per defense. It's impressive. Green Bay is at 10. Jacksonville, third worst. So they're having success slowing the run down, not having success slowing teams through the air and keeping them off the scoreboard. Third worst, 27.7, just to compare it to Green Bay, 20.4. So that's kind of where the team's at right now in terms of rankings and where they stack up compared to other teams at this point. And if you go, and like I was earlier this morning, kind of looking at some of the numbers and such, and a lot of these players last week, hey, they had good numbers according, if we use Pro Football Focus as a barometer or as like a scale sort of thing, they had good numbers. But to me, you gotta kind of grade it on a curve because you're going up against the absolute crappy New England Patriots. So I don't, like for example, Ventrell Miller, their linebacker. He had the 4th highest run defensive grade in week 7. And we know Jacksonville's good at stopping the run, but again, look at who they play. We'll say Trevor Lawrence, if you want a little bit of a nuggets, he is the highest graded quarterback, according to Pro Football Focus, highest graded quarterback on deep throws this season, just slightly edging out Joe Burrow. So Trevor Lawrence is grading out at a 92.6. Joe Burrow, 92.5. And I think a lot of that has to do with you got a rookie wide receiver in Brian Thomas, where amongst rookie wide receivers this year, he is second in receptions, first in yards after the catch, first in yards per route ran, tied for first with touchdown catches. So, with all that being said, what are some keys to victory, key matchups, players to watch, players that have to have themselves a game? I want to start with the Packers defense. So we went through a couple of those numbers there. One, know where Brian Thomas Jr. is. Obviously, he's having a good rookie season. We just went through those. He's playing some good ball right now. Okay. And we just went through Trevor Lawrence, how good he is at the deep ball. Whether that means Jair is spending the majority part of his time on Brian Thomas Jr. or what, but Green Bay's coming off of a heck of a performance in the defensive game. A heck of a performance in the defensive game. With it specifically in the pass defense. I know Mixon ran for over 100 yards with the Texans this past week, but to hold C.J. Stroud and that crew for under 100 yards, yes, they were missing Nico Collins, but still to hold C.J. Stroud and you still got Stephon Diggs and such to under 100 yards is pretty dang impressive. So Green Bay's secondary, I think, again will be a little tested with some deep throws and with Brian Thomas Jr. Jaguars want to get the ball out to Brian Thomas Jr. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you can forget about the rushing offense from Jacksonville. Tank Bigsby, 415 yards on the ground so far this year. He's averaging 6.2 yards per carry. 4 touchdowns. Then you got Travis Etienne, also involved in there, 230 yards rushing. So you've got 2 running backs that have the ability to put up some numbers and the ability to run the ball and move the ball. And especially Tank Bigsby right now with where he's at. And, I think at least for the last couple of years, when you think about running backs with the Jaguars, it's Travis Etienne and that. But right now you look at Bigsby, he's coming off of 118 yards against the Patriots. Yes, just 24 yards and 7 carries against the Bears. Colts, he had 101 on 13 carries, 90 against Houston. But it's kind of a two-headed, right? It's kind of a two-headed punch with these running backs. And that's where Trevor Lawrence, when you look at some of his play action numbers, that's where he has success because of those 2 guys. You've got to be aware of Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne. But then the way Brian Thomas is playing, you got some other options in the receiving core for the Jaguars. You've got to be aware of his play action rate. Because Trevor Lawrence, not bad. Pretty darn solid against play action this year. So defensively, is it a similar type of a game plan as last week? I think for one, you got to try to get pressure on Trevor Lawrence. I don't think you can play him the same way you kind of did with, just like a discipline pressure and such. Kind of want to see a lot of the similar stuff to what we saw against the Texans. That's getting after CJ Stroud. He was great against the blitz, but winning getting there with like 4 or 5 guys and not necessarily bringing extra blitzes all the time. Jeff Halfley yesterday, by the way, he talked about the blitzing or the pressure that they were able to get against the Houston Texans. And if you haven't ever listened to Jeff Halfley talk, I mean, that guy was I could listen to that guy talk football a lot. But he broke it down a little bit in terms of how they were able to generate pressure with 4 and then bringing a unique or a different type of player as a fifth option. We saw that in that game, right? We saw like Eric Wilson. We saw Xavier McKinney getting a sack over there too. So is he able to confuse a guy like Trevor Lawrence in this game and able to get that pressure and able to get after him and maybe make some mistakes or rush that throw? But I think they got to be disciplined. They got to be aware of their two running backs coming out of the backfield, be aware of the running game with those two. But they're going to have a solid secondary game. Jair's going to, I would imagine, be on Brian Thomas Jr. quite a bit, but don't forget about the other options over there. And then Packers offensively, when you look at it, it's been a few times this year where we've gone into games and thinking, okay, you're going up against a porous run defense. Run the football. It's a day to run the football. But this week, you look at where they're at, and Jacksonville's, the one thing they do well on defense is what? They do a pretty solid job of stopping the run. Through the air, they've struggled here a little bit. So when you look at that, that would kind of tell a lot of people, all right, we got to throw the football. We're going to throw the football. I get it. That doesn't mean you can completely abandon the run. And I don't think Green Bay wants to completely abandon that run. I don't think they want to go into this game saying, all right, we're going up against a team that's had some success stopping run. Jacob, sorry, man, but probably not going to get a lot of carries. They want to establish the run. They want to have success running the football. But this might be an opportunity for this Green Bay receiving core and tight ends to have themselves a day. And for Jordan Love to have themselves a day. I think ultimately if Green Bay offensively is able to get a little bit going there with the running game to where that play action is super effective, they can attack that Jaguars defense through the air. If they can have some success running the football with Jacobs, Wilson, whoever, if they can do that, that just opens up that play action game, and that's where I think you could potentially see some big plays when it comes to this Packers offense, passing offense. Now, I think they're going to be able to move the ball through the air. But if Jacksonville is going to be able to have success in slowing down the run, stopping the run without, loading up the box, they can dedicate extra defenders out there and such. But I think a key here is even though Jacksonville has done a decent job of slowing down that run, if you can get that running game going, against them, it opens up that play action game. And then you can really be aggressive down the field and taking some shots or moving the ball through the air. Right now, this secondary from Jacksonville, one interception. That's it. They have one interception. They've forced 3 fumbles and only recovered 2 of them. They're not that great at taking the ball away. Takeaways this year. They haven't been opportunistic in that department. I know we opened up the week and the talk was a little bit, at least on the socials, and we threw it out there too, was, okay, don't overlook Jacksonville. We know you got Detroit coming up afterwards. Then it's the bye, and then, got this run of Chicago, San Francisco, Miami, Detroit, Seattle. Green Bay, by all accounts, this is a game Green Bay wins on every single level. Green Bay is a team that's 5-2, coming off of a win against Houston, in which they tried every single way to give that thing away, lost the turnover battle by 3, still won it. Green Bay is a more talented team. They're a team that's playing with more confidence in every single area. This is a game that Green Bay should win, and maybe even win comfortably. The only thing for me in this game that where Green Bay doesn't win is they shoot themselves in the foot and Jacksonville capitalizes on it. They shoot themselves in the foot by turning the ball over, or they come out flat because for whatever reason, or they looking past them, and then Jacksonville takes advantage of that. But if Green Bay plays their game offensively and defensively, they win this game. They go into Jacksonville and they win this game. I think there's going to be opportunities for this passing offense to move the ball down the field. Maybe it's a day for Christian Watson. Maybe it's Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, Tucker Kraft. Who cares? They got options. They got options up the wahoo for their passing offense. The only way I see Green Bay not winning this game is if they don't allow themselves to win it. If they come out flat, or they overlook them, or they make stupid mistakes and turn the ball over, and Jacksonville's able to capitalize on it. Play your game, focus on the opponent at hand, and play your game. You're going to win this ball game. So I think some keys to victory here, other keys to victory for me for Green Bay. Again, even though Jacksonville has done a good job of slowing down the run, try to establish that, get that play action game going. Because if you could get that play action game going, I think big plays are going to be on the table there. So I still think you have to try to establish the run. Don't give Jacksonville any extra possessions or any sort of confidence by turning the ball over. Make good throws, make good decisions, Jordan Love. Not in a triple coverage. That sort of thing. This is a team that hasn't been able to take the ball away this year. Don't allow them to, or don't let them all of a sudden have a career day in terms of interceptions and such. Take care of the football. Take care of that football. Play your style of offense. I feel like if Green Bay plays their style of offense, they hold the upper hand by a wide margin against this Jacksonville defense. Then on the flip side, I think you play a lot of the similar stuff, not necessarily the same exact game plan. You don't want to do that. But for the Packers defense, I think you take some elements of what you did last week against the Texans and do it this week. Try to get after Trevor Lawrence. Don't allow him, where he's had success, has been those deep balls. Don't allow him to have time in the pocket behind the line of scrimmage for some big plays to hit those deep throws to Brian Thomas Jr. Put some consistent pressure on him, about that 50% mark like it was against the Texans. Go out there and do that. But be mindful. Don't ignore the young running back duo of Tank and Travis. Because similar to Green Bay, if Jacksonville's going to have success in running the football, and they're going to be able to get 4-5 yards per carry, Trevor Lawrence is pretty good at play action. He's had good numbers with play action. Don't allow them to get into that groove. So stop the run. Stop the run. Put constant pressure on Trevor Lawrence. And don't let Brian Thomas Jr. go off. Shut him down. Take him out of the game. Force Lawrence to go elsewhere with the football. You got Christian Kirk, who's got 320 receiving yards so far this year, 1 touchdown. Gabe Davis is on there too. He's played a lot of football throughout his career. But if they could take Brian Thomas Jr. out of it, you're kind of, blanking half the field there. So constant pressure on Lawrence. Try to get him to make some mistakes out there. Slow down that run. Don't let Jacksonville get into a play action game. So I think for my players to watch, players that got to have a game offensively and defensively. Offensively, I'm gonna go Christian Watson. I don't know why. I've got this feeling. It's just based off of a gut feeling. This might be a game where Christian Watson just has one of those games. Over 100 yards receiving, maybe a touchdown or two. But we talked about if Green Bay can get into the play action where they do have success running the football against a defense that has had success at slowing down the football or running the football. If Green Bay is able to have that, they can get that play action. Boom, that opens it up for Watson down the field. So I'm looking at Christian Watson. That's my guy that's got to have a game. My guy who's going to have a game on Sunday. Offensively, defensively, I want to. The big thing here is we don't know if Quay Walker is going to play or not. So I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to say the linebacking group as a whole, whether that's Quay Walker, or it's Eric Wilson, or Edrin Cooper, or McDuffie. I'm going to go with those guys because those are the guys that have to slow down, take out Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne. Don't let them be factors in this game. It's those linebackers. Maybe even throw a little Javon Bullard in there too because he's playing closer to the line of scrimmage. But I'm looking at the linebackers that have to be guys that step up and slow down that running attack and maybe even bring in a little pressure against Trevor Lawrence. So I know it's not one player. I'm kind of going against my own rules, but I'm going to go with the linebacking group. However, that whole rotation kind of shapes up for Green Bay. All right, let's take a quick break. Your keys to victory, your key matchups, predictions, players who got to have a game, all that good stuff. Hit me up. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. It's Friday, which also means it's time for a Friday fish fry, whether it's for lunch or dinner tonight. Not sure where to go. That's simple. Head on over to our good friends at the VFW Post 305 on Star Avenue and get their famous fish fry. Or maybe this morning, if you're trying to figure out what the heck is on the menu for breakfast, stop on by and grab yourself some breakfast at the VFW Post 305 on Star Avenue as well. We've got G-Man saying Bucky will win 28-24. Pack will win 33-17 on Wisconsin. Go Pack Go. Jeremy saying Pack win 38-17. Keys protect love, limit the pressure, win the turnover games and no special teams miscues, not like not fielding a punt or allowing no big returns. Key players to watch, Dobbs and Clark. Need Clark to help slow down the running game. Dobbs to work the middle and keep the chains moving. Last, they need to slow down Evan Ingram. Don't let him down the middle of the field. All right, keep those coming. Keep them coming. Appreciate those that are coming through. We'll get back to some more Packers and Jaguars talk throughout the morning here. We got plenty more to get to. Coming up next hour, we'll do some local sports roundup. Lots to catch up on with Brandon Berg. High school football playoffs starting tonight. We got other prep teams in playoff action like volleyball. I know some are wrapping it up or have wrapped it up. Soccer's also going on, so we'll do some local sports roundup with Brandon. Plus, we've got the Blue Gold and Blue Devil, UW Eau Claire, UW Stout's football game tomorrow. Stout having, I think, surprising a lot of people this year with their play. So we got that. We've got some inside the training room with our Dr. Crow, coming up just past 7 o'clock. Go through a few player injuries with him. And then World Series. World Series finally starts tonight. Who you picking? Even if you don't care about the Yankees or the Dodgers. I think one thing we can all agree on, it sure looks like it's going to be an entertaining series. I hope it is at least. I mean, I want to see the best of the best rise to the occasion and battle it out. And we're talking about how fun these games are. I think a lot of us are hoping it goes 7 games. But I know a lot of us don't like the Yankees, don't like the Dodgers. But who are you picking to win the World Series? Plus, Bucks are also back in action tonight, taking on the Bulls. So we'll get that up as well as the home opener for the Bucks tonight. So before all that fun stuff, we got to talk to Morgan first. So.
Wah, wah, wah. I know. So I have a question. If it comes to sports, obviously World Series, even though the Brewers are in it, different teams, you watch because it's the big game. Same with the Super Bowl every year. It's kind of, the crown jewel of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to pick one sport to watch the rest of your life from the biggies, so we'll say football, basketball, baseball.
Yeah.
What would you pick as a sport?
Football.
Now from there, if you break it down, would you go like what Hutsy's playing? Would you go high school and like that kind of level sports, collegiate or pro?
Pro first.
So you would always lean pro.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that versus like the other even collegiate level, that near pro status?
I think my problem with it's not really a problem. It's just the talent level gap.
Okay, see, I was talking to somebody else and they had the complete opposite answer as you. They said if they had to give up one, they would give up all the pro sports because it's becoming more about money, showboating.
Well,
and they like watching local athletes in action because it still is like that kind of boys of fall type feel.
For basketball, I'd rather watch college.
Okay, so why is that then?
Because of that reason. To me, the NBA has become so individualized. It's
a player, not a team.
Right, exactly. One player can completely wreck a whole team, whether they decide to leave or all that sort of stuff. Like and the college game has changed over the years too. Like the old phrase, they play for the name in the front, not in the back.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't matter anymore in college because that's not even true.
Okay.
I mean, NIL
and you think
all that stuff.
Once the genie's out of the bottle, you can't swing back that direction.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Okay. Some teams still go by that. I mean, I think, Wisconsin could be one of those, but with the whole NIL stuff and players able to move on every year for better deals, you don't play for the name on the front anymore.
If you had to get a little bit critical, and we'll say since we're talking about NBA, what team plays most like a team?
In the NBA?
Yeah, if you had to pick one.
Oh gosh.
Because obviously we love Giannis, but it's kind of the Giannis show, and so I get what
Giannis
you're
and
saying.
Dame. Um, I mean, the good teams, you still need that one dude. I'm gonna go back to Oklahoma City. I know they got Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who's a MVP favorite, but I like a younger team that grows together,
Okay.
and that's what OKC has.
Okay, so
So,
that's where you would go with
mhm.
basketball. Now, why do you pick pro football over collegiate?
Because and this is not, I mean, it's not a knock on them. There are so many collegiate teams
Mhm.
that, there's talent all over, but there is a talent gap from pro and college. Obviously, I understand there
I
is.
think a lot of players that made that jump are gonna say the
Right.
same thing because you see a lot of players that are excelling on a college level and they go pro and it's like, "What the hell happened?"
My main one would be like the quarterback play.
Yeah.
The huge gap in talent from quarterback play.
Okay.
Um, I like an aerial attack when it comes to football. I'm not trying to diss the running game, but and then plus when it comes to college football, it's always what? Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama.
Everybody gets tired of that. The
Yeah,
same argument could be made going into the series again now, yeah, with Yankees Dodgers,
right.
is
Yep,
it classic or is it curated?
yep,
I guess it depends on who you believe. But on that note, if you're playing local ball tonight, lots of playoff games in action.
yep. better. Visit cvosm.com to get started.
Ladies and gentlemen, sports aficionados and armchair quarterbacks, welcome to the Dan Casper Show, where sports passion meets expert analysis. Dan's encyclopedic knowledge and infectious passion for all things sports is both impressive and sad.
I have many leather-bound books.
So get ready to laugh, cheer, and maybe even facepalm a few times.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
It's the Dan Casper Show.
Second hour kicking off on this Football Friday. A big thanks for making us a part of your start here this morning. Got lots to still catch up on. We'll talk some Badgers and Penn State, some college football. We've got the World Series also beginning tonight. Bucks are back in action. We got some local sports roundup with a lot of local teams kicking off their postseason run tonight. So we'll go through that with our expert on hand, Mr. Brandon Berg. Plus, we'll get back to some more pro football. We begin this hour, though, talking with the good doctor, Dr. Austin Crowe.
Paging Dr. Crowe. Breaking down the latest in sports injuries. It's time for Inside the Training Room with Dr. Crowe. On the Dan Casper Show.
He is Dr. Austin Crowe, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, joining us here this morning. First up is your Regis Ramblers tonight, Carson Park taking on Fall Creek. You guys got the 1 seed. Close game for your final game against the Illinois team last week, too.
Yeah, that was a nail-biter, to say the least. So that one came down to a 2-point conversion. They scored a touchdown with 2 seconds left and decided to try drive home with the win by going for 2, and we stuffed them. So that's the most exciting high school game I've been a part of. So it was great to come out with the win, and hopefully that projects us forward into the playoffs. But we have a tough matchup tonight against Fall Creek. So as always with playoffs, you play or go home. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, definitely the Division 6 bracket too. There's a lot of good teams. I'm looking at it here too. Not to look too far ahead, because I don't want you to do that, Coach. But it's
I don't even know who you're talking about.
But a lot of good teams in there too. So best of luck tonight to you and the boys at Carson Park.
Appreciate it.
Last night though, your Vikings falling a little bit short, but we appreciate you making things a little bit closer in the division, if for us Packers fans. So
yeah, absolutely, excitement. That's what we're all. It's an entertainment industry, and that's what we're trying to provide.
I like that. So, first of all, I got to ask. I don't know if you heard it earlier in the week, and it's been downplayed in that. But what was your first reaction if you did hear the rumor about the Vikings would like to get Matthew Stafford? Did you hear that?
I did hear that rumor. I mean. Well, Stafford sure looked good against us last night.
Yeah.
I think he's still got some fuel in the tank, but I just think at this point you have to leverage a lot for. I mean, how much does he have left in the tank? I mean, I think we've been spoiled by Brady. When he had that longevity, it's just such a rare thing. I don't think Rodgers is washed up, but I think we are seeing that maybe time is catching up with him, like almost every other quarterback in the history of the NFL. So. As you get guys who are a little longer in the tooth, you start wondering, is it worth, investing a lot into that? Darnold, I think, has been playing well. He didn't have a bad game last night. Certainly our offense struggled a little bit outside of that first quarter where we looked sharp. But I think that it's a couple drop balls, a couple things could have definitely went different for us. So I personally am not ready to move on. And certainly trading for a guy like Stafford is going to take a lot of cap space. So to me, I think we still have hopefully our future between Darnold and JJ, and I think we go with that for the time being at least.
Mm-hmm. Last night, your team did suffer an injury. Christian Darrisaw was left the game, was walking with crutches Thursday night after suffering a left knee injury in the second quarter. Player running into his knee or hit his knee there. Obviously, I mean, is the big concern the ACL with that knee?
Yeah, I mean, so when you look at the injury, they obviously showed it a couple times in the highlights. I think at minimum you're looking at an MCL injury. I mean, you saw the hit kind of the back outside of the knee that pushes it in, so you're gonna have a stress on the MCL. So best case scenario for us is going to be, Jordan Love, like a grade 2 MCL. And those hurt, right? I mean, people get up limping. Those can be a significant injury. Unfortunately, with that, you often do see an ACL with that mechanism. And so our hope is that the MRI is going to come back with good news. I'm sure he's getting it done this morning. So we'll probably know more by this afternoon. But ACL, I mean, it is possible it could be other injuries along with it. So you can have bony injuries. You can have meniscal injuries. So there's a number of different things that obviously the hope is it's going to be just an MCL alone, but clearly it was a significant injury. I mean, he was down, had to be helped up, limped off on crutches. So he has been an absolute stud at tackle for us. So that would be a huge, huge, huge loss. But unfortunately, injuries are part of the NFL, so you have to deal with them. And, unfortunately, the guy who stepped up didn't seem to step up quite as much as we needed him because he gave up a couple big pressures, including the quote unquote sack to end the game. But it was, it is what it is. You got to step up and we'll see how it goes.
That wasn't a face mask. What are you talking about, sir? I don't know what you're talking
about.
Yeah,
I didn't see it. I didn't know. I mean, with your eyes closed, you can't even see it.
There you go. I like that. I might use that phrase later on. Hey, I want to go back to Aiden Hutchinson. We know we talked about the injury now, but there was a report that said that if the Lions make it all the way to the Super Bowl, he could play in that game. And that's in February. Do you think that's a realistic possibility with the type of injury that he suffered?
Theoretically, I mean, so when I'm sure he got a rod. I guess I never saw the follow-up on that, but I would guarantee he got what's called the tibial rod. Depending on the fracture pattern, we do usually allow some weight bearing right off the bat. And so the bone should be getting good healing by, 6 to 8 weeks. 10 to 12 weeks, you should have solid bone formation where it can start really absorbing more impact. And so then you do the math out on that. You're looking at, into the new year. I guess it's possible. I mean, do I think it's likely? I don't, because not only do you have to get that recovery, but during that time, the leg isn't really in use. And so there's just a lot of building up you have to do to get back to, quote unquote, pro level form, which is what he'd have to be at. So unlikely, but theoretically possible. Yeah, it is. I mean, like we talked about, bones heal better than ligaments and tendons. So ironically, despite that being a gruesome injury, in some regards, you're like, all right, bone heals well. I mean, better than a really bad ankle ligament or knee ligament injury, I would say for sure. So even though it looks worse, recovery is more predictable, and certainly the timeline can be shorter.
With broken bones and such, I know Chris Godwin suffered a broken ankle in his previous game, and all reports are saying he's done for the season. He's going to be entering free agency. Given the position he plays of wide receiver, is there any long-term effects with that type of injury that he suffered?
Unfortunately, there can be. So ankles are highly variable. People use the term ankle fracture. We all do. But it's such a huge spectrum of injuries. So there can be like an isolated fibula fracture and mainly just soft tissue beyond that. You can have injuries that break into the joint. Certainly when the ankle dislocates, then you talk about shear injury to the cartilage, which can, worsen the prognosis. So I would say we see some people bounce back very well. I mean, one that pops into mind from recent memory is Dak Prescott. I mean, he had a fracture dislocation. You remember his ankle was pointing in the wrong direction.
Yep.
I mean, he looks like he doesn't have any ankle issues at all, right? I mean, he's scrambling around, running. How well he throws the ball, it's a different story, but that's not his ankle. So I think if you look at it, he certainly could bounce back, even at the position he plays. But it could certainly be a career-ending injury. So, I mean, we see that. So I realize that's a wish-washy answer, but we see it go both ways. People bounce back great, people struggle. So it'll be interesting to see the injury pattern. They probably will never disclose that, but I mean, whoever treated him will have a much better idea. And then certainly for him and his recovery, we'll see how it goes. But it could go well, it could struggle.
One game that was kind of intriguing leading up to this, but it'd be a little bit of a damper if he doesn't play. We got Commanders Bears. And it sounds like Jane Daniels won't play. He's been missing practice with what they're calling as a rib injury, and he left the game early last week with a rib injury. Is it when he potentially misses this game this week, does that tell you if it's a broken rib or is it just a pain tolerance thing? I know we've talked about rib injuries before in the past. What would cause him to potentially miss this game with that rib injury?
Yeah, I mean, it could be multifactorial. I mean, I think certainly it's a rib. I mean, rib fractures or bad contusions. I mean, they're really almost the same thing. I mean, they can be to the point where people have a hard time breathing. Forget throwing a football. So if he's not able to actually throw a ball well, he can't play. But yeah, the concern for injury, I mean, if you do have a true fractured rib, there's the risk of being hit there and causing what's called a pneumothorax or a collapsed lung, aka. I don't think that's super high risk. So most of the time we let people play through those if they're able to tolerate it. So I think it's going to be probably more likely a pain tolerance. Now, if you have multiple fractured ribs, then it's more of a safety issue. But I mean, they would certainly announce that. I mean, they've been a little more hush on it. So I doubt it was like 3-4 broken ribs. So if it's an isolated one or maybe even two, usually you just say, hey, how do you feel? Can you play? Can you play? Good. Go out there. And if not, then you're done. So that is an injury. Sometimes they will try, numb it as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember, was it Tyrod Taylor who he has lung collapse from the injection?
Yeah.
That was a big whoopsie.
That's what started Justin Herbert's career, essentially.
Yes, it did. That's right. Yeah, that is crazy how that works. So, yeah, I mean, sometimes we even try to numb those and let people get back out there. But, I think it'll be, given the fact it's been multiple weeks now, I think they're just probably going to let him play and more like warm up. And if he can play, he can play. If he can't, he can't.
Would a quarterback, I know we've talked about it like with wide receivers and running backs, could they play with those Kevlar vests, or is that, because they have the throwing motion where that could limit them a little bit?
No, a lot of Kevlar vests, flak jackets, we call them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
No, quarterbacks are probably the most common position to wear those. So can it alter the throwing mechanics a little bit? Does it make them bulkier and harder to be nimble? Because obviously he can scramble some. I think yes to a certain degree, but I think if they're saying you at whatever percent he'd be at is better than our backup, then in the flak jacket doesn't hold back too much, then that is an option. But I mean, no matter what you wear, if you take a shot to a hurt rib, you're you're doubled over, no doubt about that. So it's something they'll have to keep a close eye on.
I want to go to the NBA world here quick as we wrap up things. What's a lot of the talking points in the NBA is Joel Embiid, and now the NBA is investigating how they're going about it. But the narrative is that he's not going to play any back-to-backs and trying to stay healthy and such. And I know we've talked about load management and how things have changed over the years, but I guess I'm kind of asking what was your general thought, or what are your general thoughts when you hear that the potential Joel Embiid, who's one of the best players in the league, is getting paid like one of the best players in the league, but the team may want to not have him play back-to-backs, and you're talking maybe 50 or 60 games this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Load management is a term that was introduced to the NBA, I don't know, a handful of years ago. And we're seeing more and more of it utilized. I mean, I think you always have to look at it. I mean, these big guys, especially when they've had injuries to the joints, I mean, if they play hard, sometimes the knee ache and swell and they can't play another game. So, I mean, I realize the other issue, and I know I jokingly said it earlier, it's an entertainment industry. I mean, that professional sports are entertainment. So the fans are the people who keep it going, right? So we're the ones who are paying money for tickets. We're the ones who are, watching television that pay for the commercials. So it is an entertainment industry. And so when people aren't playing, it's not the best product. So fans get upset, and understandably. But on the flip side, I mean, these people are human beings. And if they can't play back-to-back games because of pain or discomfort, it makes it a significant challenge. And so when you look at these guys, especially coming off, and I know he didn't have a surgery this offseason, but he's had surgery on this knee before that's affecting him. I mean, is it a concern that he's going to re-injure it? I mean, I think at that point you have to look at that. And I mean, we do that with people in their daily lives. And I talk to people who have arthritis in their knee, and like, look, we need to start modifying activities. So at the end of the day, sometimes you have to look at doing that quote unquote load management. And I mean, when you look at what they're able to do and perform, it's sometimes a situation where it's going to be, again, frustrating for the fan base, but it's what you have to do to keep them healthy. So it's either that, or they play back-to-back games, the knee swells, they can't play for 2 weeks, and then people are upset about that too. So I guess the real question is what happens when it comes to playoff time, and you want to start really, I know they don't do back-to-back playoff games, but it's going to be where it's like, look, you really can't miss a game. Is he going to be able to go then if they get to that point? So, question marks that do come up, but I think load management's here to stay. I don't think this is going to be a unique circumstance. I think you're going to see this utilized more and more with players. And I know the NBA is trying to crack down on it where it's been a little too frivolous, but I think you're going to see it. And certainly people have a history of injuries like Joel does.
And then I don't know if you kind of were following along a little bit with the Clippers, but I saw this morning that a former Clippers trainer is actually suing the team because he claims he was fired for voicing concerns over Kawhi Leonard's injuries. And Kawhi Leonard's another guy who's been banged up over the last few years, and
Yeah.
not sure if there. And I know he had an ACL injury a couple years ago, and then the whole Olympics thing this summer where he was on the team, but then was taken off the team because of knee issues and swelling and stuff. And does that kind of raise your concern? Maybe there's a cartilage issue, kind of like David Bakhtiari, if he's still dealing with that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, certainly persistent issues. It's highly suggestive of either the ACL graft maybe isn't doing so hot, or more likely a cartilage-based injury along with it. I mean, unfortunately, cartilage injuries are very common with ligament, in this case, ACL injuries. I know I did not see the lawsuit. That'd be interesting. I'll have to maybe read on that. It's Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting situation when you have medical staff and athletes, and sometimes people feel like they're at odds with each other. Um, and it'll be interesting to see the grounds that guy's trying to sue over. But anyway, to that point, Kawhi's knee certainly, he's clearly not been exactly the same, and he's done some load management as well with his knees. So you start looking at that and saying, all right, is this a guy that is going to have persistent issues? I mean, unfortunately, there's a laundry list of NFL, NBA, you name it, athletes that have had their careers cut short by injuries, and often cartilage-based injuries are the kiss of death for a joint because we just don't always have great solutions for them to get people back to participating at a super high elite level.
Just to wrap it up, when they said Kawhi with the Olympics, and they said he's got inflammation in his knee, is that basically the fluid is filling up in his knee?
Generally speaking, yeah. When we're talking about inflammation in this setting, it almost universally is effusions, or what we call fluid on the knee, which is a marker that the inside of the joint is not happy. Which, again, I mean, 9 times out of 10 in this situation, it's going to be a cartilage problem, and it can be relatively focal. It can be diffuse. It can be high grade, low grade. There's a lot of different things. So it's going to be something that, and they can over time calm down. So it's not like once you have that, it's like, well, now the knee's done for. But certainly it's not something you like to see. I mean, when I have one of my post-op patients come back after a knee reconstruction, one of the first things I assess is there fluid on the knee? And when the fluid's going away, that's a great sign. And when it's there, it's not necessarily a bad sign, but you like to see it go away. And when it's persisting, you start to say, okay, do we have something going on here?
Interesting stuff. He's Dr. Austin Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Good stuff as always every Friday morning. Best of luck to the boys tonight, sir, at Carson Park, 7 p.m. If anybody listening wants to go check out some high school playoff actions right in our backyard. Regis taking on Fall Creek over there. So best of luck, and hopefully we'll be talking with you soon again, bud.
Absolutely. Take care.
You got it. Dr. Austin Crow again, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Quick break, and we'll bring in Mr. Berg, Mr. Brandon Berg. It's been a couple weeks since we've talked to Brandon. Weren't here last week, so we'll catch up with him. Lots to catch up on with Brandon. He's coming up after these quick words. With the holiday season fast approaching, if you're going to be hosting any get-togethers, family, friends coming on over, and you want to make a good impression with your home on them, starts with the flooring. Build from the ground up, as they say. Update that flooring game of yours with our good friends from Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire. Whether it's carpet, tile, luxury vinyl planks, whatever it is, they got it. You name it, they got it over there. And the team over there is just absolutely fantastic to work with. They will work with you from the beginning of the project all the way to the install team to the completion of the project too. So if you're not quite sure what would work the best or even look the best or what works within your budget, stop on over at our good friends at Carpet City Flooring Center, and they will happily help you out throughout the whole process. Brandon Berg joining us here this morning. We got lots to get to here. October is always a busy month in the sports world, which is a good way or a good month or a good thing to have. So let's jump right into some local sports roundup here because tonight is kickoff night for the playoffs. I'm just gonna go. I've got the brackets up here, and we'll start from Division One and just kind of move forward. And Chi High, after their win against Menominee last weekend, they get the 5 seed in Division One, where they will be taking on Middleton. It's a 5-4 matchup, so I mean, just based off if they get it right, should be a close game, right? With those two teams.
You'd think so. I mean, they get the same record. Middleton is an interesting matchup for Chippewa. The two teams never played before, which I guess isn't a surprise given the distance. But Middleton has one of the top passing quarterbacks in the state. He ranks in the top 10, I believe, in both yards and touchdown passes. So it's a team that likes to throw a lot. That's going to be a unique challenge for Chippewa, but it's a Chippewa team that has defended the pass pretty well this year. They had one game against DC Everest where Everest kind of was able to throw on them a little bit, but otherwise, especially coming off last week against Menominee, a good passing team with a good quarterback and they were able to kind of limit them. So, that's a very interesting matchup. Once you get to the postseason, you're never quite sure how, divisions are going to be split. And this was kind of one where you didn't know if it would be kind of more northern half. So you might get like a Bayport or Kimberly or whoever in there. It's happened before. I mean, it's just one of those things people try to predict, but you can never truly predict it. But that's an interesting matchup for a 4-5. And I'm going to be very curious to see how that matchup goes, just because. I mean, you can't really say it's two different style teams because Chippewa can throw too. So it's not like they're just kind of they have to run the ball kind of a thing.
Right.
They just want to if they can.
Right. And then, really for the rest of D1, I know technically Stevens Point and those are kind of in our conference stretch, but you got Hudson as a 2
DC
seed.
Everest. That's an interesting one to me. You've got Hudson, who ended the year pretty strong, most notably picking up a big win over Rice Lake last week. And you got DC Everest, who won the Wisconsin Valley Conference this year. I mean, that's a team that I saw when they played Chippewa Falls, and that is a explosive offense. They've got a really good quarterback, and then Logan George. I mentioned before, you got a tough physical runner, and Blaine Bankston, who has put up a lot of yards this year. So that is not your typical 2-7 matchup, I would say. I mean, I think Everest is, if they're a 7 seed, they're one of the better 7 seeds you're going to find. Let's put it that way. So that's a tough matchup out of the gate for Hudson, but that's a Hudson team that's playing really well right now.
This moving to Division 2, this side of the bracket to me is interesting, Brandon. You got New Richmond as a 1 seed, Big Rivers Conference champs, right? New Richmond over there, going up against 8 seeded Marshfield. They also have Menominee, who's a 6 seed on here, going up against Monona Grove, and then Rice Lake's the 2 seed. In this one, taking on DeForest. I mean, so in this, you've got New Richmond, Rice Lake, and Menominee in there. That potentially could shape out to be some interesting matchups.
Right, yeah. I mean, you've got 3 Big Rivers teams in there. You've got a couple teams from the Mississippi Valley, which, crazy enough, wow, that's the 4-5 matchup with Holman Lacrosse Central, which actually ended up in a 5-way tie for first place.
Wow.
So, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that before, but 2 of those teams are matching up with Holman and Lacrosse Central. But, that's Big Rivers teams at the top with New Richmond and Rice Lake. And I think that's what pretty much everybody thought kind of as the regular season wound down. And, New Richmond went unbeaten, won the Big Rivers. They're a deserving 1 seed. I mean, they beat Rice Lake by, I believe, 1 point when they played. So, I mean, if ultimately that is the matchup in level 3, that would be a heck of a rematch. Menominee coming off tough loss to Chippewa, but a Menominee team that earlier this year beat Hudson.
Yeah.
We just mentioned the 2 seed in Division 1.
Mm-hmm.
A team that gave some of those other teams trouble. So Menominee was a little bit banged up last week, but they're Menominee. I mean, they're always going to be kind of a this tough, fundamentally sound team, and going down south to play a good Monona Grove team. It would not surprise me to see Menominee put up a good effort in that one.
Mm-hmm. Moving to Division 3, shout out to the number 1 seed Medford Raiders at the top of the bracket over there. They'll be taking on number 8 Lakeland in Medford tonight. But some of the other teams in there, you got Onalaska as a 2 seed at the bottom of there, and really that's for our immediate area. That's kind of
there's
it for
not a
Division
lot.
3.
Yeah, there's just not a lot there for Division 3 this year. But you mentioned Medford. I mean, they're one of the top rushing teams in the state.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a surprise if you follow high school football and you kind of know what Medford's all about. That's their bread and butter, and they do it very well. So
Coach Alberti has just got to be smiling right now. So yeah, former coach Alberti over there. So Division 4, you got Freedom as the top seed, St. Croix Central, the 8 seed taking on them. You got Ellsworth as a 6 taking on number 3 Mosinee. Seymour's a 5 taking on number 4 Prescott. Baldwin Woodville's a 2 seed. Kind of falls in that matchup over there too. So again, kind of like Division 3 a little bit. It
not a
feels
lot,
like.
not a lot of local teams from around here. You got some of the teams from the Middle Border. Another part of that bracket, you got Aquinas, who moved up this year because of the competitive balance rule. They're now in Division 4, but they're a 1 seed, and they've still been very good as well.
Arcadia is a 7 seed on the other side.
Correct.
There, so
yep. So you've got some teams from the Mississippi Valley area, not necessarily the Mississippi Valley Conference, but still, just I think you're kind of seeing, and you'll see it too here once we get to some other divisions, that sometimes you just have certain areas of the state that are have more teams in certain divisions. It's just that's kind of their strength at a certain size.
Right. Division 5. I always like when we get to Division 5, 6, and 7 here with some of these matchups. You've got number 1 St. Croix Falls taking on the 8-seeded Elk Mound. Barron taking on Wittenberg Bermanwood in a 5-4 matchup. Stanley Boyd, which you're going to be at tonight, as a 3 seed taking on number 6 Spooner. Got Colby as a 7 seed taking on Northwestern in that bracket.
This was an interesting bracket because I think remember the seating is done electronically, so there's no more seating meetings. It's been that way for a few years. In the old day, not the old days, but not so long ago, you used to know kind of who the 8 teams were in your grouping. And then they would get together like Saturday morning and they would seed it. The coaches would just kind of go through, and there were positive, and like anything, there were positive and negatives to it. But in this one, I think Stanley Boyd, they're a 3 seed, but they could have this was one of those where maybe you could make a case for them being a 2 seed, because with them being 8-1 and their one loss being a very competitive loss to Regis,
right,
versus Northwestern, who has 2 losses. But that's how the seedings work sometimes now when you do it electronically. I mean, there's the numbers say what the numbers say, and regardless of where you are as a team, it's kind of your job just to go out there and you win.
Right.
But Stanley Boyd taking on Spooner, and that is a very Heart North heavy region. There's 4 of the 8 teams are from the Heart North, including the top 2 seeds you mentioned. Barron, who's in a really good year, the best year they've had in a while, and then Spooner, a 6 seed, who's a tough physical team. So it's going to be a test. And talking with Coach Jeff Koenig earlier this week, he mentioned when you play a team like Spooner, it's like trying to win a fight in a phone booth.
I love those analogies.
and that's they've seen teams like that. It's kind of like that with Regis or Mondovi, but at the same time, everyone's always kind of got their own little twist on it. So it's it's going to be, I don't want to say necessarily a styles clash, but you got a Stanley Boyd team that is up tempo and they're trying to maximize plays, and you got a team like Spooner who's looking to run the ball and control the clock.
On the other side, though, too, I was just kind of you got Stratford still over there too, as a 1 seed.
Right, they're up in they're up in division this year. Competitive balance rule as well. Multi-time state champions in D6. They've bumped up to D5 this year, so they're in the same section as Fond du Lac St. Mary Springs, another team that's you've seen a lot of times in Division 6, but they've bumped up as well.
To Division 6. Another some interesting matchups here. We got Regis as 1, taking on 8-seeded Fall Creek. two teams that are a little familiar with each other. That's going to be at Carson Park tonight. You got Lady Smith as a 5 seed taking on number 4 Luther. Mondovi as a 3 seed taking on Cameron. Shatek Weyerhaeuser is a 7 seed taking on Grantsburg. If you move a little bit further down on that side, you got Nakusa taking on Abbotsford in a 5-4 matchup. And then Bondwell against the Fighting Crandons over there as a 7 seed. So, but that top part of that bracket over here too, I mean, potential of some interesting matchups
Right.
With this one.
Right. And it's always, you're always kind of wondering, and in my experience, coaches aren't always fond of when you see a team that like a conference full that you've already seen, because that's always going to give the advantage to the team that lost the first one, or maybe the team that was the lower seed. But this is one where Regis, you mentioned earlier when we were talking about Dr. Crow coming off that big win. I think that was a good game for them to have right before the playoffs. A team that really tested them, forced them to play 48 minutes right before the postseason. Like that's valuable.
Yeah.
As long as you get out there, without any injuries or anything like that, like that's very valuable. It's sometimes it can, if you go into the postseason with a couple lopsided wins, it can kind of take you a little bit to get going. But yeah, you mentioned in Fall Creek. I mean, the reason they clinched getting in was because they beat Mondovi on the last Friday.
Right. Big win for them.
That's a big win for them. Yeah. I mean, they weren't necessarily rewarded with it in the ranking and in the seedings, but yeah, no, that's a big win for that group. I mean, being able to get that right before the postseason. Mondovi still a 3. You mentioned with Cameron. Grantsburg won the Lakeland Conference. That's a Lakeland rematch. Shatek Weyerhaeuser their first year in the Lakeland. One of a couple teams moving into that conference, and they've had a solid season so far as well. But yeah, there are some interesting matchups, potentially some games that we've kind of seen before over the years in the postseason. With Regis matched up with Grantsburg before, they've matched up with Mondovi, obviously in the regular season, which was a competitive game. So
Division 7, then we've got Spring Valley as a 1 seed taking on Whitehall. Glenwood City's coming in as a 5 seed. They'll be taking on number 4 Blair Taylor. Pepin Alma taking on number 6 Aliva Strum. Turtle Lake as a 7 seed taking on Boyceville. Boyceville as a 2 seed over there too. So that should be a fun team to watch in this postseason.
I think so. And those top 2 teams, Spring Valley and Boyceville, those are the top 2 teams from the Dunn St. Croix. They met, had an excellent game in the regular season. Spring Valley won on the way to the conference championship. That's a big reason they're the 1 seed there. But yeah, if that Boyceville program has really reemerged the last couple years, making the deep run last year, losing to Edgar, but you just once you get into D7 here, I mean, Spring Valley's a team that's always there. They're always solid. You look at Blair Taylor, Pepin Alma, those are some teams, Aliva Strum, those are some teams that have had some good years in the Dairyland. I mean, that's essentially this bracket is kind of the Dairyland versus the Dunn St. Croix. When you look at it, I mean, you've got some crossover matchups in there with Glenwood City and Blair Taylor, Whitehall, Spring Valley. The other 2 are kind of rematches from the conference season. Otherwise, Edgar as the 1 seed on the bottom part of that there with, I mean, you talk about Stratford. I mean, Edgar and Stratford are kind of, sometimes they're pretty good at basketball too, but football royalty when it comes to, this time of year.
That and wrestling for them. Yeah.
Yes. So, yes, it is that. I mean, it's that time. And
well, then we got 8-man football or 8-player football coming up here too. And I know it's a little bit of a smaller bracket, but Owen Withey as a 1 seed is going to be taking on Port Edwards. You got Newman Catholic taking on McDonald Central Catholic.
Good old CWCC matchup for those of you that were around for the WISA days.
Yep. So that's a 3-2. On the other side, you've got Clayton taking on Siren. You got Northwood, Solon Springs as a 1 seed, taking on Hurley as well. So some of these games, some of the teams in it, affected by results from the final game over there too. One of them initially was Gilman was in, but
there was a mistake,
and then Clayton gets in.
There was a mistake in how they had added up one of the tiebreakers, which put Clayton in over Gilman. It's interesting because the 11-man play, or the 11-player playoffs, you have at this point, I mean, you look at the records for a lot of teams, and it's just the influx of 8-man has fundamentally changed, the 11-player playoffs, where you've got a lot of teams now that are getting in kind of below the threshold what is initially like used to be like, you need to have a 4-3 record in conference. And you would get a couple teams in, but
Mm-hmm.
now you've essentially got a division's worth of teams that have made it, that were kind of below that bar. And because, you got to fill it out. You're going to have 7 divisions. You're going to have 224 teams. It's just a matter of how do you get there.
Mm-hmm.
Right now in A player, you're kind of in a spot where you're kind of in between, where you can't really, I don't know if you can fully expand the playoffs yet, because it's growing, but yet otherwise you're still in that same spot. But you can't, because there's 16 teams. You can't really go up to 24 because you can't really give a football team a bye week at the end of October. I don't think you're going to find any coach that wants that.
I'm glad you're bringing this up, because I wanted to ask you. It almost reminds me of the college football playoff with 8-man football.
Yeah, you can't really do that. I'm sure Owen Withy wouldn't want to have a week off from playing right now. At this point, you just want to go.
Right.
So you can't really because ideally it would be nice to maybe expand it to 24, because there are, a team like a Gilman, a New Auburn, teams that had really good years that I think were playoff worthy, but it's a numbers game where I think, you've got teams. I think every team that made it was had 6 wins or more. So you basically had to be 6-2 or better. And even so, New Auburn was 6-2, and they didn't make it. It's just, it's tough, because those are teams I think that are worthy of the opportunity. It's just a matter of, you're kind of just stuck in the middle,
right?
Because you can't really go up to 32, because then you're in the same boat.
You essentially need more schools to be an 8-man football.
Yes, and it's growing. So I think they're going to get there. They're just not there yet.
Right.
But looking at these brackets, obviously, honestly, the big thing I was looking for when they were announced would Owen Withy, McDonald be in the same region, and they are. Last year, McDonald was not. They were actually in that northern bracket, and then making it through, and then losing to Thorpe to go in the game to go state. So, but both those teams, they're facing teams that were a part of a shared conference championship with Port Edwards and Wausau Newman. Wausau Newman's had a great history of 8-man success, won back-to-back titles a few years ago. They're doing it a little bit different this year, but still they've been successful. So, if both Owen Withy and McDonald are able to win, that's regardless of 8-player, 11-player, whatever, that's one of the most high-profile games to me of next week, if that's the case. And if it is, we'll talk about it next week. But
right,
both,
I got a feeling you might be at that one.
I think so. But Owen Withy coming off a tight win over Gilman. And it's interesting because Gilman and Clayton both lost to the same teams. They both lost to Owen Withy. They both lost to McDonald. The margin of victory between the two for Gilman was actually less than the combined margin or the margin of defeat than it was for Clayton, but that wasn't the tiebreaker.
What was the tiebreaker? Do you remember?
I believe it was combined win-loss record for conference foes or something like that. And Clayton was better.
Okay.
So, and that was just where they just they miscalculated or just didn't, whatever the rule was. So that's the rule there. So, but yeah, and remember the 8-player tournament is a week shorter. So that state championship game will be November 16th in Wisconsin Rapids.
Yeah. So yeah, Richie texted, if Chi High takes down Middleton and Wanakee wins, is Berg gonna come see me in Wanakee for round 2? So got to throw that one in there.
I guess. I've got connections down there,
Yeah.
so that's there's been years where they've went. Chippewa Falls has went east. They've played Kimberly. They've played Pulaski, and some. It's just and there's been years in the past too, even before I got here, they went down south. That's just. It's just one of those things. You get more travel in Division I because there's fewer teams close to home.
Right. Yep. Exactly. I know there's other stuff too. We got volleyball regionals, semifinals too. Was it the Chi High? Was it Chi High New Richmond?
I was at Chi High New Richmond. New Richmond won. They advanced. They'll take on Hudson. But obviously right here immediately in the greater Altoona Eau Claire area, big week. Big Saturday for Eau Claire volleyball. They got 4 teams in action, all 4 of them. Guaranteed a regional champion with Memorial hosting North, which I have to imagine that's going to be rather rocking. But
packed gym.
You got Eau Claire Regis in Division 4 going for a regional championship. They swept Thorpe last night. They'll take on Plumston Elmwood. D5, you've got Eau Claire Manual, who's a top seed and I believe top ranked team in Division 5. They've had an outstanding year. They'll take on Siren. So that'll be going on tomorrow night. I will be at McDonald. McDonald in Division 3, they won. They will be taking on Unity in a region that top half of that Division 3 bracket is all state ranked teams. I mean, that's a tough one. Whoever comes out of there, you got Barron and Grantsburg in the other one. Whoever comes out of there is going to be well tested. But on the other end, you've got Stratford taking on Durand, Arkansas. You got Fall Creek, who's going to be hosting Prescott. Prescott's been a bit of a disruptor this postseason, winning 2 games on the road, beating Elk Mound, and then Tuesday going on the road, making the long trip for them to Marathon and beating the Red Raiders. So, Division 2 as well. I mean, the top seed up top, Osceola, you got some in Altoona will be hitting the road to take on St. Croix Central. You've got some real middle border kind of influence there. But it's it comes so quick this time of year.
Yeah.
I mean, next week we'll be talking and it'll be the landscape and football and everything will be a lot different. You get cross country sectionals. Today you've got
I was going to ask you about cross country. There's
Division 2 up in Rice Lake. Tomorrow you've got Division 1 Menominee, Division 3 at Cadott.
Great piece, by the way, by Brandon on cross country. Check it out, chippewa.com. Got some contenders. Obviously, Bloomer's a team.
Yes.
To watch.
They'll be running
there,
today
so.
in Rice Lake. Bloomer girls finished runner-up last year at States. They recently got one of their runners back, Sophie Strand, returning from an injury. And she's jumped right in and just kind of added to what was already a darn good team. So, they're looking to get back to state and, maybe move up a little bit on the podium. We'll see. They got to, take care of business today to have that opportunity next week in Wisconsin Rapids. So,
Yeah. At the
Soccer,
good old golf course.
At the Ridges, I would like to golf there once, but I've always just been there for cross country. It looks
I've
like
golfed it. It is a nice course. Yep, definitely.
Soccer around here, Eau Claire Memorial, they'll go for a regional title tomorrow. They host Wisconsin Rapids.
That'll be another good one there too.
Another half there. You got Hudson taking out Wausau West. So those two, those two teams are always there.
Yeah.
Memorial and Hudson, just two outstanding programs. Eau Claire Memorial picked up an 8-0 shutout victory over Chippewa on Tuesday. So they're looking to make yet another deep push.
Yep.
And they got the talent to do it.
Man, a lot of things going on. Plus, tomorrow we've got Blue Gold football.
War on 94.
Blue Gold football taking on Stout. Be a good matchup. I think Stout has surprised a lot of people this year.
They picked up some big wins, but you got
really close loss to River Falls. So
and Eau Claire looking to bounce back off the tough loss to La Crosse, but I mean they picked up some wins this year too. So that's a fun one. I was actually talking to some people about that last night.
Nice.
That are going to be going, so they're excited. That's you want the trophy whenever you have the opportunity to play a team that's a rival and win a trophy. Like I don't know, I always just feel like trophies add to it.
Exactly. Yep.
It's one thing to say we beat you. It's another thing to hold up something.
Yep.
Be like, no, this says we beat you.
Yep.
Like, that's gonna be a good one tomorrow.
Especially when it's like the college football ones with the
always appreciate there's even some good ones around here in high school.
Yep.
And
what's the milk can one?
The milk can for Thorpe and Owen Withy. You've got the Burst Tree Axe for New Auburn and Lake Holcomb. There's
some good ones.
There's some good runs around.
The most creative, the better too. So
I forget the name of I think is it Monroe, but there's a down south. There's a school from Wisconsin, a school from Illinois that play, and I thought it was Monroe because that was the Cheesemakers, and they play a team from Illinois that's the Pretzels, and it's called the Snack Bowl.
That's awesome
because you got the pretzels and the cheese.
That's awesome. I like that one. Good stuff, Brandon. Local sports roundup here this morning. We got to take a quick break. We'll finish up the second hour. We're flying on by and still lots to catch up on.
Woo!
Quick break. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. We only got a few minutes to the top of the hour here, so Bucks are back in action tonight. They're gonna be taking on the Bulls for the home opener, coming off of a win against the 76ers. Just really quick with the Bucks, Brandon, are you buying this like, what are your expectations for the Bucks? I've seen everywhere from like 7 people predicting them to be the 7th seed to like maybe 3-4, somewhere around there.
I kind of like where they're at as far as I think they're a little bit under the radar.
Yeah.
Because it's year 2 with Dame. It's the first full year with Doc. Like, it's just gonna come down to health. Like, no matter what happens in the regular season, if Giannis isn't healthy entering the playoffs, doesn't matter.
Right.
We've seen that the last 2 years, and they've had different kind of versions of the team. It just hasn't mattered. Like, generally, the team that wins is the healthiest.
Yeah.
I mean, the year the Bucks won, obviously Giannis missed some time, but still he was there for the nuts and the bolts of it.
Well, and look at, when like Toronto beat Golden State was banged up.
Right.
Or when Cleveland lost to Golden State, Cleveland was banged up. Yeah, definitely. So
yeah, so I kind of like where they're at. I like their kind of under the radar free agent moves.
Gary Trent Jr.,
Gary Trent Jr. Like, I
Prince,
thought those were good role players, and that's kind of been the search the last several years, like just finding those people that work out well next to Giannis and now Dame. So, but no, I mean, it's it's going to be. I'm sure there's going to be ups and downs, and there's going to be times people are missing time and all that good stuff. But no, I like where this team is at from a personnel standpoint coming into the year.
I just hate the narrative that started off opening nights where the talking heads all of a sudden, started like, well, everybody's watching. The main story in the NBA is like, what are the Bucks going to do, and how good are they going to be, and is that going to make Giannis want to leave? And it's like,
well, if they keep pushing, eventually it's going to happen, right?
I guess you're trying to make it into an existence at that, but it's like I still go back to the question: what have the Bucks not done to make Giannis happy? Every decision has been
right. He's been consulted on everything.
I mean, for crying out loud, the report from a few days ago that they may trade Marjan Beauchamp just to open a spot for his brother who can't play because he's hurt.
Right.
So he's in the locker room. For crying out loud. I mean, like, okay, if it doesn't work out, it's not Giannis's fault.
No.
or I should say it's not the Bucks' fault.
Well, even when they went back to when they traded Drew Holiday to bring Dame in, like going to the levels of like, okay, kind of protecting us, like making sure like you're not connected to this, because obviously him and Drew are close. It's like you're not connected with this.
Right.
Like, this is just something we're making independent of you, even though I'm sure he knew at some level.
And that's why I think for a lot of fans who are frustrated with Chris Middleton, that they're like, I mean, Middleton was just his best man at Giannis's wedding.
Right.
I think that might piss off Giannis.
Right.
So
yeah.
It's like, don't hold your breath that they're going to move on from Middleton anytime soon if you're not a Middleton fan. So I think they're flying under the radar, which I'm okay with too.
Yep. I mean, obviously Boston's Boston. Philly had a lot of offseason hubbub with bringing in Paul George, but we'll see how that works with a couple guys that really struggle to stay healthy.
I am
the Knicks. I'm not sure. I mean,
I'm waiting for the Tom Thibodeau explosion to happen.
Right.
It's after a few years, and then all of a sudden,
he runs his teams hard.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So, all right, we're already 2 hours in, man.
Woo!
We got World Series. We've got college football.
We got
Unful coming up too. So we'll try to do it all. Cream of the crop. We got to get that in there too. Final hour kicking off right now on this Football Friday morning. A big thanks to all of you tuning in, however you're tuning in. Big Worm with a quick text. Victory Friday, Dano. Man, I love when the Queens lose. Sorry, Brandon, I had to say it. I'll be in the stand all weekend. Good luck to all you hunters this next month-ish. What are some of your listeners' favorite hunting tactics? All right.
That's a good one.
Text it on over if you got favorite hunting.
Keys to victory.
Wow.
I scared you somehow.
Well, see, I got to talk to our engineers because we got the new mic there. The levels are off.
Oh,
so I had it at normal.
Mic.
Yeah. Because remember, you had to use that one.
That's right.
So I think their levels are off. I had you at normal, but it was really loud in my headphones.
I was just really excited to ask for keys to victory for our hunters.
Yeah, keys to victory for hunters. So text those on over. We'll get maybe a good list over there if anybody wants to share.
That's fair.
Don't be shy.
Come on.
It's not like fishing where you're hiding a fishing hole or anything like that.
Right.
So, oh man, we got the World Series set to begin. We're gonna do some picks with that. We got college football, big game coming up tomorrow night with the Badgers and Penn State. If you don't want to text your hunting tactics, you can text happy birthday messages to our guy Brandon Berg.
My birthday was yesterday,
but still belated birthday messages. That
it's not my birthday.
Yeah. Happy birthday to you. Yay, yay.
You are old.
But happy birthday, man. Happy birthday. So, if you got, we got, if you are bow hunting during the rut, do not get out of your stand. Sit all day. Well, yeah. I do all day hunts too. That's coming up in a couple weeks here for me. So, just to let you know, it's on a Friday. You get another Friday off. I think it actually worked out to buy that weekend, the 10th. So, worked out really well for me. So,
all right.
I want to go this weekend. I'm trying to figure out a way to go, but we'll see. Trying to game plan it. Don't know if it's going to work or not, but anyways, we'll see. So, camera's actually getting some stuff, some action on there. Wrong times of the day. My trail camera, of course. So, but yes, your Vikings did fall. I was kind of wondering, like I picked the Vikings, so I got it wrong. But then it's like, okay, Puka's playing, then Cooper was playing. And I was like, oh, they're not going to get there. First of all, you didn't buy the Matthew Stafford trade rumors to Minnesota, did you? When that thing got floated out there?
Considering I had seen the sources, I did not.
Yeah.
Like, and that's something when we get to Festivus too. I'm going to be like, look, just.
This is what bugs me. And I said this the other day too. So it's kind of an early Festivus. Especially when it comes to, like the DeAndre Hopkins trade. This is what bugged me. So when it was reported, it was the Chiefs. Then you have the insiders that tweet, this was the actual move that's been in play for days and for weeks. Okay, if you knew that, then why didn't you say it earlier? You know what I mean? Just stop it.
Right.
You didn't get it.
Yeah. Just
2 weeks ago.
Right.
Just
but
stop.
It was not something like I don't know. I don't
just
think,
common sense, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's one of those things. Like I don't think Sam Darnold's played bad.
No,
like
it'd be different. Like say Sam Darnold got hurt,
right?
And you're still 5-1.
Well, it was like 2016 with Teddy Bridgewater when he got hurt. It's like, well, okay, we feel like this team is can do something. Well, you can't go out there. You can't throw Nick Mullins out there,
right?
So you got to do something,
right?
But that's not the case.
No,
he's played and he's played well.
The fact that he's an MVP talking point for I
mean, he's made himself so far anyway. I mean, obviously there's still half a year to go, but through the first half, he's made himself a good chunk of money this offseason because someone will pay for that. It won't, because with JJ McCarthy on deck, obviously probably won't be Minnesota,
right?
But there's like a team like the Giants, or I mean,
it's kind of the Nick Foles thing a little bit,
Yeah, I know when I saw that, just kind of seeing like the sources that we're talking about, I'm just like, eh. And obviously, I follow enough Vikings people to where like if they don't have it. And even if it's not like a thing that like Schefter's talking about, who say what you want about him, but usually he's on the ball with these things. Just kind of like, I don't buy it.
I don't know if this is a real one for you, Big Worm. This is from our mutual friend Timmy. Key to victory for Big Worm bow hunting deer: love the smell of Irish Spring soap. Shower with it before hitting a stand, and leave a little on you. Guaranteed results. I don't know if that's
interesting. Yeah.
I gotta find out if he's just John. Is there no? Come on, no. There's no.
Yeah.
I like that though. I know who Timmy is. So keep those coming though too. So, but all right. So 5-2. It's going to be interesting when we get to picks here. That Bears and Commanders game now with no Jane Daniels is like, first of all, it stinks because I
think we're both in the same boat there.
Yeah. But at the same time, to have the Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels matchup and both teams playing well.
They are. That game got moved to a late window.
Yep. So, but I think you and I were both hoping for a Washington win.
Yeah. I mean, Marcus Mariota did play well last week, so we'll see. I mean, he's a veteran.
So I want to ask, okay, if Marcus Mariota plays well again, and maybe Washington wins or he just plays well, when are we going to get Cliff Kingsbury head coaching talk again? Or is that ship sailed because of the one-time experiment?
I think he could get a second chance.
I feel like, is it kind of like a Raheem Morris one where his first job, really young, maybe not right there.
Could be.
And it took a little bit for Raheem to get the one, but
could be. But I just feel like with the climate of the NFL, if you're a elite level offensive mind, or even if you're just a successful offensive mind, you're going to get the next you're going to get another opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously there's some defensive coaches we've seen where that really hasn't happened, like a Steve Spagnuolo. We'll see about a Brian Flores, but I feel like with so much gearing towards offense and so many people looking to find that young coach to pair with that young quarterback, I feel like someone would give him that chance.
Yep. I agree. So it's good. I know that hire right now. I mean, Coach of the Year, you got to put Dan Quinn in the conversation too.
I think so.
Right now, so they're blowing out my expectations.
I mean, I don't think many people had Washington pegged as the East, the
probably
NFC
third.
East. Third at best. I don't think anyone was putting them above, Philly or Dallas.
But not for this year.
No,
but give them credit. Yep, absolutely. So, but you got Green Bay taking on Jacksonville in Jacksonville after their win against Houston. But then I look at that. I think some people, and I threw it out there too early in the week. Is this, I don't know if trap game or overlooking Jacksonville, because you got Detroit next week. You have the bye. But then, after this Jacksonville game, you look Detroit, bye, Chicago, San Francisco, we'll see how healthy they are, but still, you factor into it. Miami, Tua back, assuming he'll be back for that game too. Detroit, Seattle. That's a tough portion of the schedule coming up here for Green Bay.
Right.
So that's why I look at this Jacksonville game. You better win this one.
Right.
You should win this one, but you better win this one too, because as much as I would love it, I don't think you're going to go undefeated between Detroit, Chicago, San Francisco, Miami, Detroit, and Seattle. You're probably going to lose one or two in there. And given how tough this division is, it's pretty important to win as many games. Trade deadline, coming up here too. Not next week, the following week.
Yeah, it's the 5th. Yeah. It's the 5th.
Any team, because I want to ask you this because of Minnesota. Could you see a team in the NFC North make a splash trade like we've seen?
Yeah.
And who do you think that team is? To me, I keep going back to Detroit.
I think Detroit because I think that's the right pick. Because I think they're the team that's the most ready-made for just one big piece.
Mm-hmm.
Especially losing Aiden Hutchinson. Maybe you want to try to find another edge rusher that can kind of help negate that blow a little bit. Because the other guys they got, they're solid, but they're more of complementary players.
Right. They're not a game wrecker.
Correct. You want that one person that other players can work
the Max
off
Crosby's,
right. That one person that other players can work off of. So, with Minnesota, I could see them maybe making a run at, maybe they want to add some cornerback depth. I wouldn't have been opposed. I wouldn't be opposed to them taking the big swing, but it would have to be in some ways like the TJ Hawkinson thing, where it's someone you feel pretty good that you can extend.
Oh yeah.
So I think the Titans came out and said they're not going to deal Jeffrey Simmons. That would be fine with me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be fine. Honestly, I'd be fine giving up a first round pick for that.
Oh yeah.
Because with the idea of you have money coming up that you can extend him with.
Mm-hmm.
But I just, I don't know. It might just be maybe grabbing a veteran corner or just maybe another defensive lineman to kind of add some depth there. But it's not, it's not a game wrecker like that. It's just another guy you can add to the group.
Mm-hmm. Right. When you look at the NFL, to me so far this year is just weird. When I see some of these teams, and you got Kansas City, it's probably not a surprise to a lot of people they're undefeated, but I think the way they're undefeated, like Patrick Mahomes has 6 touchdown passes to 8 interceptions, yet he's got the second best odds to win MVP. Which, okay, now are we just that's just being lazy? Like it's Patrick Mahomes and they're undefeated, so he's like got the second best odds for MVP. I don't buy that, but I just, you got that, but then, Houston's 5. I to me, it's like, how do I want to say this? Kansas City's good, but it's not like they're unbeatable in my opinion.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Nope.
Like I feel like they're beatable at this point. Like they're not a juggernaut. Maybe they can be. They obviously can be. They've proven to be that. I mean, but I don't feel like they're this, oh gosh, nobody's going to beat them sort of team. Just run into. And you look at a lot of these teams in football. I mean, I don't know if there is that one team that's like tier 1 all by themselves. Like, and there's a huge gap. I mean, I'd put Kansas City up there, but is Detroit really that far behind them? I don't know if they.
I don't know if they are. And then, the Aiden Hutchins injury probably helps or hurts that a little bit too. But no, I would agree.
And then, you look at what some of these other teams, I mean, Baltimore starting off, 0-2, and everybody's freaking out. And then it's like, good Lord, Derrick Henry is just that thing is working out how everybody imagined or hoped it would.
Right. Yeah. That combination is that's just a 1-2 combo of like, what do you do?
Mm-hmm. Derrick Henry is a unicorn.
Yeah.
I think people need to start talking about the fact
he's a big beefy unicorn.
And he's fast.
Well, yeah, there wasn't in the game against Buffalo, that Sunday night game, like the top speed he hit was like the fastest of his career.
Like 22, 21
yeah,
point
like,
something.
He's not
like Brandon Jacobs.
Yeah, he's not some big plodding runner. He can move.
I know, and that's what's scary. Like if you're a defensive back, I don't want to mess with that. I'm sorry, I'll go low.
Yeah, what do you do if you're a safety and suddenly you see this guy break to the linebackers? He's running right at you.
First ballot Hall of Famer, you think right now?
I think so. Like, there's not like this generation. Like, it's gonna be interesting, obviously, with running backs as we're, I think someone like McCaffrey, as long as he has some more good years, yes. But Henry, absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know this was a topic we had a couple weeks ago, but I threw out like, okay, so. Because I saw this graphic on Facebook, and it was about all the 300 winners in baseball, and probably not going to have one for a while in baseball right now. I mean, is it Scherzer that's still close, or Verlander that's maybe the closest?
I think so.
Which one of those two guys? But then it's like, okay, so what are like the stats that are still like an elite club in sports? You know what I mean? Like mostly it's like I would put 300 in there. For home runs, is it 500 or is it now 600 up there?
I think 500 still.
Yeah. Football, it's, receivers, I think it's more than a 10,000 now. I think it's probably higher. But running backs was always 10,000.
Yeah.
And, so over there, but then like for going back to receivers, what is it with touchdowns? Is it 100 touchdowns? Because if it's 100 touchdowns, Devontae Adams is 4 away from 100 touchdowns. Is Devontae Adams a Hall of Famer?
That's how long he plays with Aaron Rodgers.
He even put up good numbers without him, though, too.
He did.
Mike Evans is in that category. Like Mike Evans and Devontae. Mike Evans has just been Mr. Consistent, but they're in the same draft class. Mike Evans, to me, is a Hall of Famer. Is Devontae a Hall of Famer? I don't know. Like, what are some of those still prestigious stat numbers out there?
Right.
Basketball, I don't know without championship. I'm not counting championships.
No, because that's. Yeah.
And I don't know what basketball, I mean, maybe the points one, but I think when you look at all-time points, it's all over the place.
Well, even like earlier this week on Dan Patrick, they were having a conversation kind of about that a little bit, where it's like, not that long ago, like if you average like 21 points a game, that was like good.
Yeah.
Like really good. Now it's just kind of like a bunch of people do it.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So you kind of have to almost grab on a curb given the era.
Exactly. So baseball is the one, though, that kind of seems it's still on that path, except for the pitching, because pitching has changed more than hitting. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Where it's like, dudes aren't lasting as long and such. So, speaking of baseball, World Series, and save your picks until our picks and predicts. I know it's Dodgers, I know it's Yankees, and big spenders, yada yada yada. But from a pure baseball standpoint, how interested are you or excited are you in this World Series?
I mean, I'll be watching. I mean. Yeah, for the reasons you mentioned, obviously for, many of us who are Brewers or Twins fans or whatever, like, that can kind of, be a little bit of a downer, but at the same time, you're going to have, many of the biggest stars in the game going out there and playing. So it's, and you want to see that on that big stage. You just kind of wish that it was the big stars on your team. But so no, I'm interested. I don't think I have a rooting interest. I'll probably be watching just to watch.
Right.
But I'll still be watching.
Right. I mean, I think, just for me, I just want the 7-game classic series with
Right.
all these big
Do
names.
something to pull us out. Do someone to pull everybody in, especially those people that maybe just kind of like, I don't really want to watch.
Right. I mean, you've got the names, you've got the star power, you've got the history and all that. Just live up to it. I don't want a 4-game sweep or a 5-game series or anything like that. That's kind of non-dramatic at this point. I don't want to see Ohtani go hitless, or Judge only have a single or something like this. I want the stars to really shine in this one. Mookie Betts, Juan Soto, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So speaking of baseball, really quick, should mention before we take a break, I don't know if this is a sign of things to come, but as voted on by their peers, players, coaches, and executives, Pat Murphy was named National League Manager of the Year. This was through Sporting News. And then Matt Arnold was named Executive of the Year. So I don't know if that will be a sign of like when we get to award season and the Major League Baseball ones over there. But I would imagine, I mean, if that's got to carry some weight, right? If it's the players and it's the executives and the managers that are the ones voting on this to vote. Pat Murphy one, I don't think is too big a surprise. Matt Arnold shouldn't be a big surprise, but I think maybe some people might have looked maybe David Stearns for the Mets or maybe something with Cleveland over there too. So, but hopefully, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
What was your take with them changing hitting coaches and now they've got like 3?
Yeah.
I mean, it was weird, I think, on the surface because like, hey, offense improved last year.
Yeah.
They keep one of them, but
I don't know. Like, I just don't really have a response because I don't know. Like, it's one of those things. Like, as much as we want to think we kind of know, like, we don't really know like what goes into it. But yeah, all you can do is look at results.
Right.
And Al LaBouffe is someone that's been in the organization a while. I mean, I think Pat Murphy said he's known Al going back to the 1980s. Like, they played in the same team in the Carolina League.
Of course, Pat Murphy.
But like, it's a bit. I think it's a bit like Murphy in that this is a guy that's kind of been grinding for a long time, kind of getting an opportunity. I don't have a problem with that, but I don't really have a strong feeling on it one way or the other. It's just kind of it is what it is.
And is it one of those where he's had experience with those younger guys in AAA, and they're on the big league club, where it's just that kind of maybe a little bit of a connection there too.
Yeah, I could see
possibly, that. But yeah, you got lead hitting coach and then 2 hitting coaches.
Yeah,
so
it's unique. I mean, it's unique in that it's not the way it's always been, but it's the way more teams are going now.
Was it 3 hitting coaches? I think they've got now on their squad. So still 2 pitching coaches, right? Because Henderson's the assistant to Chris Hook,
right?
Jim Henderson over there, but just keep Chris Hook, right?
Right. That's
keep Chris Hook on the ball club. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll talk some college football in here too as well. But you can make your World Series predictions. Hit us up with a text. Shoot us a message. We'll get to our picks and predicts coming up a little bit later on. Cream of the crop. We'll lead that off coming up here in a couple minutes. Badgers taking on Penn State tomorrow night at Camp Randall Stadium. Badgers playing well in these last couple weeks here. Coming off of a 23-3 win against Northwestern. Penn State had the bye, so they extra preparing for this one. I save your pick, obviously, because we're going to be doing that a little bit later on here. But do you feel more optimistic about this Badger team than what you did 4 weeks ago?
Yeah.
About their chances potentially to win this game?
Yes.
At Camp Randall. So
I think there's a way I could see it happening. I still don't think it's very likely, but there's a way you could see it happening based on what they've done since. I guess you could if you looked at that first half of that USC game, and then more so the last 3 weeks, which obviously Penn State is, the best team they've played. I mean, when you look at kind of them compared to Alabama, they're playing better.
Yeah.
So, but it's just a different challenge.
If, and I think a question is going to be, let's say they beat Penn State. I think the question then is, what changed a few weeks ago? What's different? I mean, obviously you got Braden Locke in there, Ches Malusi stepped away, you could point to those. Or is it just like coaches are finally like, okay, we're just going to go.
It's just clicking.
Yeah, and we're going to maybe go down to the basics or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
But that's the question then, right?
Right.
Is if they beat Penn State, okay, what has changed
in
this program?
In the last 6 weeks or whatever it's been since they got run off the field, their home field by Alabama.
Mm-hmm. And I know this is something you've mentioned though too. It's like we're still kind of waiting for that Luke Fickell era win,
like that,
right?
that signature win.
Obviously, this would be it if they pull it off tomorrow night. But I mean, they're still kind of waiting for it. Would you say this is the best football this team has played in a stretch in the early first 2 years of the Luke Fickell era?
I think it's fair to say. And obviously, you can look at the caliber of opponents and say, well, it hasn't been great. But they've controlled the games. Like, they didn't do that last year at all.
Right.
It seemed like every game they won was kind of the grind.
Mm-hmm.
So,
because this is what we want to see the first 2 weeks of the season against those opponents.
Right. I think team might feel a little bit different about them if they would have came out and did this in those first 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But they did. But they're doing it now. So, and the schedule picks up. They went through and they won the games they should win.
Yep.
They beat Rutgers. They beat Northwestern.
Mm-hmm.
They did what they needed to do.
Yeah. So, but you're right. I mean, you beat Penn State. Let's just say they beat. I don't want to use the word assume because that makes it feel like we're confident they're going to. But say they beat Penn State. Then you got Iowa, which we know is always kind of a tough one going down to Iowa.
Yeah,
we don't know how
we'll
it
see.
plays
That
out.
might be a night game.
Yep.
We'll see. That hasn't been announced yet for next week. I think
They're
honestly,
kinda
I think if Wisconsin were to win that game, that would be a night game.
I do.
Because I think that 6:30 NBC slot's open. I think they would like to do the Iowa-Wisconsin game at night if it was more meaningful. Because I think right now, that one, like Illinois, Minnesota, hasn't been announced either.
Right.
So maybe, let's put it this way. Whoever does better this week, I think gets that 6:30 NBC game next week.
I just want to throw this scenario out there. So we got, by the way, it's only 5 more games left of the regular season. Let's say Wisconsin runs the table, which it ain't going to happen.
No,
but let's just say, you got Oregon on there too. But right now, Wisconsin's 3-1 in conference play. Indiana's 4-0, Oregon's 4-0, Penn State's 3-0, Illinois 3-1. That means if they would beat Penn State and Oregon, they would jump up there. I mean,
just do it.
Just
do
make
it happen.
Just
make it happen.
But I mean, they're what 1, 2, 3, 4, tied for 4th in the conference with Illinois over there. So, I mean, you just win if you win one of these games, Penn State, Oregon, and then take care of business against Iowa. Nebraska's kind of come down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, but they're still. I mean, Dylan Raiola had a really good freshman year. Like that's going to be.
It's at Nebraska, so
yeah, and that's so that's a tough game.
Mm-hmm. And then you finish up with Minnesota. I mean, if you finish the season with 3 losses, with a win against Penn State or Oregon, do you take that as a
100%? Heck, if they go 3-2 the rest of the way and end the regular season 8-4, I'm fine with that in year 2. Especially if it just so happens that say you beat Penn State but you lose to Iowa, and you don't want to lose to a rival, but like if you go 3-2 and one of those 3 wins is against either Oregon or Penn State, I think that's a tremendous building block.
Mm-hmm. And I think it maybe calms down a lot of the anger and frustration, angst from because it wasn't that long ago. So I mean, we had guests on and people saying they were not comfortable with the direction this program was going.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it was Luke Fickell, Chris McIntosh, and
Phil
all
Longo.
that, Phil Longo, Tressel, defensive coordinator, that would quiet that. It almost feels like a Greg Gard situation where it would quiet it down a little bit,
right?
At that point.
But I think the thing that I've liked with the Badgers the last few weeks is it almost just seems like some of the younger guys are kind of taking hold.
Mm-hmm.
Where obviously Braden Locke has had to out of necessity, but some of the younger running backs, some of the younger receivers, obviously Trechka Kahuna has had some big games, but some of the younger guys on defense too. It just seems like some of those guys that they brought in, those younger guys, are kind of starting to maybe get their opportunity a little bit,
mm-hmm.
and they're starting to make their mark, and that's encouraging. Like Locke, especially tomorrow night, he's going to avoid that early kind of dumb interception that he'll throw.
Yeah,
but like you see it with him. You see why he can be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And Tolly Walker, I mean, a lot of credit to him. He is. I don't
talk about building blocks. Are those two guys for next year?
But he's a senior.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, yep, you're right.
But he's someone that
I mean, guys are playing 8 years now, so.
Well, but he's just like he's a Wisconsin running back.
Mm-hmm.
Like even obviously things have changed with the style of play, but that's someone that I think even a longtime Badger fan can look at and go, yeah, that's a Wisconsin running back right there. He's going to run you over.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just been such a stabilizer. And then you can kind of work in some of those freshman running backs around him with Malusi out of the lineup. Like that's a good place to start because then you go into next year and all those sophomores are going to get their shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even a guy like Cade Giacomelli.
Yeah.
He's made the most. He hasn't had a ton of opportunities, but he's been explosive in his limited opportunities. Like I've said it a million times, but I'll still say it. Like this Badger offense can still be a run offense even out of the spread. It can still be a run known attack. It just looks different.
Mm-hmm.
But heck, even we've seen the last few weeks, they've lined up sometimes under center. Like they've done some kind of Wisconsin things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even if you're just sprinkling it in there, that's fine. You can do that.
Quieting down the former Badgers that are going on X and Twitter saying, stop running out of shotgun on 3rd and 1 or something.
Well,
like
until
that.
the next time it happens.
Yeah. Yep. So, but no, we got some good slates of games coming up for college football this weekend too. So it should be some good picks over there. You got Illinois going up against Oregon. Can Illinois pull off an upset? Notre Dame versus Navy. Navy in the top 25. They're at number 24 right now, baby. Indiana continue to roll. They got Washington coming to town over here too. So Missouri, Alabama on there. And, Texas now dropping to 5. But they've got ranked Vanderbilt over there too. So, and of course, LSU, Texas A&M. So we got some good matchups to pick for sure. Do you like this college football season for how many times we've had a different number 1?
Yeah.
Kind of coming up through here.
I don't think it'll end that way, but it's a bit 2007-ish.
Yeah.
Where you kind of remember it was kind of like, I think it was the curse of the second spot, where every week, like there'd be a new team, the second spot they lose. Like at one point, like South Florida was number 2.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some people say that they don't think a team's going to make it through unbeaten.
Mm-hmm.
Plus,
what's Oregon's schedule? Because Oregon and Penn State are still undefeated. Do they play each other?
I don't know.
I'm bringing it up right now.
The other thing too to consider,
they do not.
With Penn State next week, and they're coming off but next week Penn State's got Ohio State.
Yep.
Does Penn State get a little bit? Are they looking ahead a little bit?
You talked about one team. Nobody going to. I think if there's one, Oregon's in shape for that, because the rest of their schedule is Illinois, then it's Michigan, Maryland, Wisconsin, Washington. And
are we looking at Ohio State, Indiana? Or I'm sorry, or Oregon, Indiana?
For the Big
Will
Ten
the Big Ten let Indiana in the Big Ten title game, unlike in 2020?
Maybe. I mean, what's Indiana's schedule? Oh, I got it up right here. Indiana's got Washington, Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, and then Purdue. And it's at Ohio State though too. So, but
no,
yeah,
maybe.
So, but Is the U back? Remember last year, is Texas back? Now is the U back? They're at number 6.
I mean,
They're
you know what helps?
undefeated.
You know what helps to be back? Having a really good quarterback. Cam Ward's a good quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was watching a little bit of that game actually last Saturday when Louisville was making a little bit of that comeback, that 14-point swing or whatever.
Cam Ward's legit. Cam Ward's legit.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. Tell you what, I want to take a break because we've got a lot of picks to make.
We got a lot of them.
We're going to do some baseball. We'll do some hoops. We'll do some college football and pro football and such. So we'll do that as we wrap up things here this morning. So quick break, and then we'll be back in just a few minutes. Forgot to do cream of the crop. Got to do cream of the crop. Remind me. Cream of the crop. All right. Before we get to our picks and predicts, because again, we've got a lot of picks, and we're going to mix in some talking points over there too with that. Shall we do a little little cream of the crop here to get things going here this morning. So, where's the button? There it is. All righty, Brandon. Your cream of the crop. For the past
Before
week.
I do this, quick, I need to make a clarification from earlier when I mentioned the snack bowl
Oh, yes.
between Monroe and Freeport. That is actually in basketball, not football.
Okay.
But they do play for the snack bowl because you get the Monroe cheesemakers and the Freeport pretzels.
All righty.
So I just wanted to make sure I had that squared away. That will be basketball, not football.
Okay.
My cream of the crop, I'm going to go with it. Tolly Walker from the Badgers. Let's put it this way. I don't think anyone expected him to make as big of an impact as he has. And he's been a big reason that they've been able to kind of pull the nose up a little bit here. He's fun. And he's, as a running back, he's fun to watch, but like you look at his numbers and I mean, it's significant. I mean, he's averaging over 5 yards a carry. He's got 565 yards, 9 touchdowns. I think he's had a couple games of 3 touchdowns in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's been the kind of the bell cow for him with Ches Malusi being out of the lineup. So I mean, he's someone that you can kind of point to as a place this offense starts with. And let's put it this way: if they're going to beat Penn State tomorrow night, I think he's going to have a big game.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go my cream of the crop. Packer safety Evan Williams. This dude needs to be talked about more as a defensive rookie of the year candidate. You went from, which was questionable because, I mean, in preseason training camp, the man was having a really good camp and training camp. But week 1, 0% of defensive snaps. Texans, week 7, 100% of the defensive snaps. So,
outhouse to the penthouse.
Mm-hmm. Evan Williams, cream of the crop right now, difference maker within that defense. So, all right, let's do some picks and predicts. Should we start World Series?
Let's do it.
Do World Series, then college football, then pro football over there? You want to do that?
Yeah.
All right. World Series, we'll just do the series.
Yeah.
Because we got game 1 tonight, but who do you have winning? And give me your World Series MVP.
I will take the Yankees in 6.
Okay.
And my MVP will be Aaron Judge.
I'm going to go Yankees in 7. I'll go Juan Soto as MVP.
And then he wins the most valuable bank account because he will get paid in the offseason.
Think he'll get more than Ohtani though?
I don't think so.
I don't
but
think
he'll be 500-600 million.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah. I feel like this could be a series where a lot of runs are scored.
Yeah.
With the pitching staffs. Is it fair to say the Yankees are a little bit better right now, healthier pitching wise?
I think so.
At that point, so it's. I know Rob Manfred said it the other day though too, but it's like normally in a series you'd be happy with like Mookie Betts taking on Juan Soto. Those are like the second guys,
right?
I mean, Freddie Freeman's in there; he's going to be playing too, but it's definitely a lot of star power, and I hope it lives up to it. So, but yeah, we're both going with the Yankees here. So, all right, let's do some college football picks. I know we talked a little bit about some of these games coming up here, but let's start off with, by the way, shout out. I did them yesterday. Kennesaw State over Liberty. Did you hear it? First time they've ever beaten an FBS school. So let's start off Notre Dame at Navy.
Navy. I won a collision course of Navy Army in the American Championship game, and then they play the next week in their normal game.
Mm-hmm.
I am all in on both these teams, both Army and Navy this year. Give me Navy, and that's in East Rutherford, right?
Yep, at MetLife Stadium. Yep.
I'm going with.
Heck yeah, let's go Navy.
I'm going with the midshipmen.
Yep, I'll go Navy too. Why not? I know Notre Dame's favored by 13.5. Screw it. Let's go Navy. I agree with you. I would love to see a Navy Army when they're playing really well too. So that'll be a good pick when we get to that.
I think it's the first time since like the 60s that both teams have been ranked at the same time.
Probably.
I think it is.
Yeah. All right. Let's scroll down here. How about Illinois at Oregon? Oregon's favored by 21.5. I think we know who we're picking, but does Oregon cover?
I don't think Oregon covers. I will take Oregon like a 34-17 kind of game.
That's good. I like that too. Yeah, I'm gonna go Oregon wins, but 21.5 to win by 22.
Yeah.
But it is, it's kind of with your theory where they're going across Illinois over there too. So.
That bit me though.
It did.
That bit me. I was 0 for 2 on that.
Yeah. Let's go Texas at Vanderbilt. Texas favored by 18.5 points.
I'll take Texas. I think obviously Vanderbilt's improved. They're ranked, but I think Texas bounces back off of that bopping at the hands of the Georgia Bulldogs. So give me Texas.
I'm going to go Texas too. By the way, our picks and predicts, forgot to mention this, brought to you by the Elbow Room.
Watch the games there. Do it.
Thanks, Brandon. Elbow Room located right next to the Banbury Place, but Brandon's exactly right. If you're looking for somewhere, because we got a lot of sports action going on, that's why October is the best sports month. Everything going on here. But Elbow Room located right next to the Banbury Place. Just don't bring up the 49ers right now, to Garrett over there. Just don't mention 49ers. So let's go then with LSU, Texas A&M. Texas A&M favored by 1 at College Station.
I'll go LSU.
I'm going LSU too. Yep, I'm going LSU. Let's go. Well, then let's go Penn State, Wisconsin. Where was the line for this one? I'm actually surprised. It's only 6.5.
I said that's what I had seen it too.
4 weeks ago it was double digits though, right?
It was.
It would be, yeah.
I'm going to take Penn State. I think it's a game that Penn State gets a score at the end to make it a 2. I'm going to say like 23-13.
Yeah, I was going to say
something like where like the Badgers have their chances. They can't quite do it. And then like Penn State adds like a field goal late to kind of put it out of reach. So I'm going to say 23-13 Penn State.
I'm going to go Penn State, and I do think Penn State covers in this game too. So, all right. Those are our college picks. Let's bring up the NFL picks. I already got my first one wrong. I had
me too.
Vikings.
That's what I get for picking the Vikings.
Vikings winning yesterday. And I thought about changing it, but I'm like, that bit me last time. So no, I'm just gonna stay with it. Don't make the change. Don't think too much about it. Luckily, still tied for first, and you're just one back.
I've gained some ground these last few weeks.
Well, we've got Jolene and myself at 74, Brandon and Peter at 73.
Let's catch them, Peter, and pass them.
We've got Baltimore at Cleveland.
I'm going to take Baltimore. Obviously, they're playing as well as anyone right now. And
Cleveland's a mess.
They are, but they're going to,
they might play better now without Deshaun
They might,
Watson.
but I'm going to go with Baltimore.
Yep, I'm going to go with the Ravens as well.
I'll go with old Cleveland over new Cleveland.
Can we bring Vinny Testaverde out for like the coin flip or something? Let's go Tennessee Titans at Detroit.
Detroit.
Yeah, I'm going Detroit too. Colts at the Texans.
I'm going to go Houston.
Texans. Cardinals at Miami.
I'm going to go Miami. Obviously, it sounds like Tua is on track to be back, but I think this is a win for the Dolphins.
I'm going with the Dolphins too. Jets at the Patriots. Which soft team is going to win?
Yes. Who is less soft?
Who is the less Charmin?
This is the game where the Jets finally stop listening to the media, as Aaron Rodgers says. I'm going to take the Jets.
Can you imagine if the Jets lose this one?
I would laugh pretty hard.
I think a lot of us would.
I would laugh pretty hard, but I'm going to take the Jets in this one.
I will take the Jets too. Atlanta at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, do they have any receivers in this game?
Yeah, I'm going to go Atlanta.
I'm going with the Falcons too. Man, we got the same picks right now, Brandon.
We do. So. I'm not going to catch you that way.
Here's a good one, though. Eagles at Cincy.
I'm going to go Cincinnati.
I went Cincy too.
Stop copying me.
Saints at Chargers.
I'm going to go with the Chargers.
Same here. I went with the Chargers. Buffalo traveling all across the country to Seattle. Is that going to affect them?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to go with Buffalo.
Buffalo too. Buffalo. Okay. Chicago at Washington. I'm going to log in actually and double check what I made for my pick in this one. I might have to change it too.
I went with the Bears.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bears, and I'm going to go against my reasonings of changing picks here. Now, let me ask you, if Jane Daniels is playing, you going Washington then?
I think I might.
Yeah, I would. I'm going. Yeah. So I'm changing. I'm going with Chicago right now. Carolina, Denver.
I'm gonna go Denver mostly because Carolina's just
What a
bad.
mess.
I mean,
Bryce Young starting.
poor Andy Dalton. Just get like
Poor Deontay Johnson. He said, he can't play every position. Yeah, I'm going Denver too. Kansas City versus the Raiders.
this might surprise you. I'm gonna go Kansas City. I couldn't see your reaction.
I'm going Kansas City too. Okay, this one might actually be a decent one that we might be different on this one. Dallas at San Fran.
I went San Francisco.
Okay, I'm going Dallas.
There we
go.
got one.
We got one right there.
Yep.
So I'm going Dallas. Giants at the Steelers.
Give me Mr. Unlimited, Pittsburgh.
It was so on par. I loved his pregame interview on the field. So Chat GPT, AI, Russell Wilson was Chat GPT before artificial intelligence. Just so, like that. If you didn't, it's like, oh my God.
It's yeah.
But hey, he ended up playing really well in that second half. Made Mike Tomlin's decision look really good.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to go Pittsburgh here. And then Green Bay taking on Jacksonville.
I'm going to go with Green Bay.
Yep.
Hitting the road. I know under Aaron Rodgers' era, wasn't there some weird stat about him playing in Florida or something?
Yeah, it was.
But I don't think that affects him here. Like Jacksonville, I think is a better team than they've shown. I think Matt LaFleur brought up. They've had a few games that could have went the other way.
Mm-hmm.
There's some talent there, but I think Green Bay's playing well right now. I think they go and they take care of business in what's going to probably be a pretty Green Bay friendly crowd.
Yeah, it probably will be. Yeah, I'm going to go Green Bay in here too. I feel like this is a game that the only way Green Bay loses is if they kind of shoot themselves in the foot, although they did last week. But then Jacksonville takes advantage of it over there too. Or they overlook it, paying attention to Detroit next week. So, man, I wish it would be though. If I could get a pick wrong, I hope somehow Tennessee wins just to make things more interesting next week between Green Bay and that. Then everybody's tied with 2 losses in the division. Everybody gets an award there. Everybody. Come on, Tennessee. Pull it out. Make it happen. But yeah, we literally, so you will either tie me or I go up 2 on you. What are you gawking at over there?
I had to double check, but I didn't realize that 4 of the first 8 games for the Packers were against the AFC South.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that. Minnesota's played 1 game against the AFC South so far.
Well, and Chicago has not played a division game yet.
That will change pretty quick here.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, weird how things work out a little bit.
Goofy schedule makers.
And everybody else in the North has had a bye besides Green Bay.
Yeah.
So we'll see if that plays out or helps them out. So
weird.
It is weird. So, all right. It's going to be a busy weekend with a lot. Then we got Bucks going at it tonight too. Want to pick that game?
I'm gonna
Bucks Bulls.
I will take the Bucks.
I'll take the Bucks too. By the way, let's do this. You're NBA champion, or Eastern Conference champion, Western Conference champion.
You know what? I'm gonna have some fun with this because I'm not good at these type of things anyway. Bucks T-Wolves.
Okay.
The NBA Finals that is Mark Sterling's biggest regret.
Mm-hmm.
Not only Mark Sterling, but also who is the deputy to the
Adam Silver.
Sterling.
Yeah.
Why do they all got like Sterling and Silver names? Like
and Stearns and
and
I'm going Boston and Thunder. Very generic.
I thought about Thunder. Like, this is the year they just kind of take that leap, kind of like we've seen, other teams do.
Yep. Yeah, I'm going Boston Thunder. So.
Neither of us going the Nugs another year. I think this year it kind of catches up to them. Like, there is something to be said for like when you go deep in the playoffs a few years in a row, like the amount of extra wear and tear it puts on you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Hey, by the way, should shout out Minnesota, still kind of undefeated, 5-0-2, overtime loss. So they don't have a straight up loss, but they're 5-0-2.
Wild.
Winnipeg though, legit 7-0 to begin the season over there. So my Kraken 4-3-1. 4-3-1. Just for one more year. Utah's 4-3-1 as well.
Until the Utah Yetis come to town.
unless they really disappoint and they don't become the Yetis, then I will be going back to the Kraken and asking for forgiveness. But I better.
They will say, "Who are you?"
I gotta wear out that hat because I've barely been wearing it at this point. So, all right. I think that's our picks and predicts again, brought to you by the Elbow Room. Elbow Room over there. Can you believe we're going to be like, this is the halfway mark of the NFL season? Kind of, sort of. It's not exact. It would be if it was still 16, but it's still kind of the halfway mark at this point. That's nuts to think about.
It is.
If the playoffs started today, every team in the NFC North would be
I think so.
Still in with the loss last night with your Vikings over there.
I think so.
That won't happen, I don't think. I think because eventually they're going to beat up on each other.
Yeah. And I do think part of the reason that they have the strong records is they haven't played each other much.
Right.
I think that's part of it.
Because I mean, Chicago hasn't played any of these. Eventually, it's going to catch up to them. And
and then Green Bay and Detroit have each played one game.
Right.
Minnesota obviously too, because that's the common denominator.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
So, but you have Detroit, you have Washington, and you have Seattle and Atlanta as your conference or your division leaders or top 4 seeds in the National Football Conference. After that, AFC is probably more like what people expected: Kansas City, Houston, and Baltimore and Buffalo as your top 4. So, but a lot of ball game left, as the kids like to say. Really quick, where are you going to be at again tonight?
Stanley Boyd and Spooner.
All right. So best of luck to all the teams in action, high school football teams that will be kicking off tonight.
Volleyball. There's a lot of you. Volleyball, soccer.
A lot of you.
Hey, State Equestrian this weekend.
That's
down
right.
in Madison. Chippewa Falls going for their 11th straight.
I know
title.
Memorial, and is it Memorial Fall Creek or all?
There's
Memorial
there's
Town,
other ones down there. Bloomers down there. Thorpe's got a team. Then Cornell has a team. So yeah, there's
best of luck down there too. So
it's underway tonight.
Have a good weekend, everybody. DP Danitz, they're up next. Hopefully, we'll be having a victory Monday.
No,
coming up.